Story 1. I have no relation with my half-sister because she was the product of my mother's affair, but she wants to move into my house, and everybody is against me. My half-sister, HS, and I have no real relationship background. My dad divorced our mother when I was 5, and HS was still 4 but going on 5. HS was the product of my mother's affair and born exactly 9 months after me. My dad stayed with my mother up until I, at 5, told him about the man my mother kept bringing over when he wasn't home. That would be HS' father. My dad gave my mother the house in exchange for removing his name from HS' birth certificate. He paid her child support for me up until I was 8, and my mother abandoned me during her week because her AP didn't want to take a child that wasn't his to visit his family for the holidays anymore. And HS pretty much hated me because her grandpa supposedly liked me better. Dad tried to be civil and make sure I had a relationship with HS after that, but I didn't want anything to do with her either, so I never spent time with her after that. HS herself would say she didn't have a sister, so I never claimed her. A question and advice needed. The day I made my account, HS called me. I don't know how she got my number, but she was sobbing about our mom kicking her out of the house and not wanting anything to do with her now that she's married to random name. Don't know who he is. I just hung up on her, to be honest, and she started texting me that she really needs her sister's help. She says she has nowhere else to go. Her father cut contact a while ago, and no one is willing to come up to get her. She lives 6 hours away from where I live, which I guess is easy to figure. I live next door to my dad. I'm a bit torn because when she called again, I told her we're not actually sisters, and I'm not coming to get her, nor am I giving her a place to stay until she's back on her feet. Then I hung up again. I blocked her number, but she's been calling from other numbers, and now I have people from my mother's family telling me I'm an awful sister, and I should be more understanding because I was once the child that got kicked out. I just need some insight because I want to know if I'm in the wrong or if I should have gone about it differently. Now for some comments. Comment: NTA. Your mother's family has a lot of nerve. Are any of them stepping forward to help your HS out? Ultimately, you don't owe her anything due to some shared genetics. At the same time, do you want to act the same way she did? I'd definitely be cautious bringing someone into my home that I didn't trust enough to not rob me blind, etc. You know her better than we do. If you do decide to be the change you would like to see in the world, just be certain to lay out all of the possible ground rules ahead of time. Opie. That's my main question. They act the same way she did part. Had this been a few years earlier, I would have helped her, I think. When we were kids, I'm pretty sure she was just parroting whatever her parents were saying, but we're both 25 now, and I don't get why, after 17 years, I'm the one she comes running to. I don't think I should have said what I said when she was already so emotional, but I just don't get it. No one is helping her as far as I know. Most of the people calling/texting are people I don't have a relationship with. My grandma claims she has a full house right now, and since I technically live alone, she thinks I should help HS out. But she's saying that because of the whole family helps family mindset. I don't know her all that well anymore either. She's as much of a stranger to me now as she is to you. I just want to know what others would do in my place. Date 1. 4 days ago, I made my account and contemplated asking if I was an awful person. Something my half-sister, HS, had called me crying, saying our mother kicked her out and she really needs her sister. I hung up the first time, and when she kept calling and texting, I told her we're not actually sisters and I wasn't driving 6 hours to pick her up nor letting her stay with me. I've been getting non-stop texts and calls from my maternal family since then. My maternal grandmother, the only person I stayed in any contact with, pretty much begged me to be a good sister and let HS stay with me. She told HS I have my own house, gave her my number, etc. I've blocked my grandmother and everyone saying that I should be understanding because we've both been abandoned by our mother. It isn't the same. I told my grandmother this, but no one seems willing to acknowledge that. For context, HS and I are exactly 9 months apart in age. She's the product of an affair, and my dad stayed with my biological mother, BM, until I was 5 and told him she kept bringing a man around when he wasn't home, her affair partner/AP and HS biological dad. Dad divorced BM and gave her the house in exchange for removing his name from HS' birth certificate. BM lost custody of me when I was 8 after abandoning me because AP didn't want to bring a child that wasn't his to family gatherings. Dad tried to keep it civil so I could have a relationship with HS, but she was a mini AP and never viewed me as a sister. I didn't like being around her, so my dad never forced me to. BM, AP, and HS moved not long after this. BM had been in childcare and lost her job because no one wants to hire you to watch their kids when you abandon yours in the middle of the night. I haven't seen HS in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like until I came home today. She was sitting on my porch with a suitcase and a car, I think my grandmother's, pulled off as soon as I parked. I didn't get out of the car. I was too angry to even move, and I'm still angry right now. She kept saying she needs me and started crying, telling me that her mom was awful, her dad cut contact, and BM's new partner doesn't want her in his house. I live next door to my dad, so when HS started knocking on my car window after I just stared at her, I called him and told him what was going on and asked what I should do. Dad told me to stay in my car and call the cops, say I had a trespasser, which I did. I didn't get out until the cops came, and when they did, HS told them I agreed to let her stay, and now I'm leaving her homeless. I just showed them the texts, specifically the only texts I gave in response to everyone demanding, "You let her stay," not "Do you have the space?" not "She's your sister," not "Can she please stay with you?" Nothing but refusals before I blocked people. When HS kept saying we're sisters, I told the cops, I haven't seen this woman in 17 years. I don't know her. I didn't even know what she looked like. We're not family beyond sharing an egg donor. I went as far as unblocking my grandmother and calling her. I didn't even get to speak. She said/yelled, "Look, I love you, but you need to get over this. She's family, and she needs you. And I've told your father you'd go to hell if he raised you to be so damn selfish. And you definitely will because she's going through the same thing you went through." She hung up right after, and I told the cops they can book HS or drop her at a shelter. I don't care. I just want her off my property. They took her, and now I'm sitting here on my dad's couch, wondering what the hell just happened. He doesn't want me staying alone right now in case they show back up. I'm so pissed right now. I don't get it. 17 damn years of no contact. I only speak to my grandmother on holidays. I don't know most of the aunts and uncles and cousins that blew up my phone, but because BM pushed me out, I have to do what they tell me to. I'm 25 years old. I've only had my dad and my paternal family for years. BM and her family haven't done crap for me. None of them even know when my damn birthday is because even my grandmother texts me on the wrong day. Not even a phone call. If HS needs help so badly, one of you should help her. I don't know her. I don't know any of you either. I'm not letting an entire stranger into my house, and 6 hours is too far to visit when I had surgery but not too far to try and force me to do something. Now for some comments. Comment 1. This is crazy. Why is no one on the maternal side stepping up? And how old is this half-sister? It also just seems so bizarre that your maternal grandmother would drive a 12-hour round trip to basically ditch your half-sister with you. Opie. She's 24 to 25, her birthday is close, I think, and it is crazy that she drove down here. I know there's far more to this situation, and I really don't want to know. I just want them to leave me be. Comment 2. I know you don't plan to let her move in with you, but don't ever change your mind on that. She'll likely never leave, won't pay rent/contribute towards costs, and you'd have to legally evict her. Save yourself the headache. Opie. The nightmare of an eviction process is part of why I don't like the idea of anyone staying with me. TBH. It's 7 nights in a row here for guests to become tenants. And the one time a friend of mine let someone stay with her. 1 week turned into 6 months of court hearings and damaged property. Definitely going to save myself the headache. Update 2. I checked the camera footage last night/this morning. HS and BM's mother had been looking under mats, rocks, in potted plants, the mailbox, and checking the doors, probably looking for a spare. I don't keep one on my property, and my dad, grandma, and grandpa have keys they keep with theirs. My uncle did an overhaul of mine and dad's cameras. We now have ones that send notifications to our phones when motion is detected, also got Ring doorbells for the front and back doors. There are other features, and all the cameras are better hidden as well. I went to the police department while he was doing this and brought my grandpa with me. HS was booked for trespassing but not held very long since BM's mother picked her up from the station. They stuck to the lie of me offering HS a place to stay and gave statements. Not sure how that's going to go, but I'm taking steps to protect myself, my property, and my dad and his property. HS doesn't have a record beyond this, so this was her first offense. I don't know how I feel about that, TBH. It sounds awful, but I had hoped she would have at least one prior because commenters make it seem like that would make the outcome of a permanent TRO favorable. BM's mother does have a record, though: harassment, trespassing, and domestic violence. I shared this with the police as well. Either way, I was able to get a temporary restraining order today, so there's that. I gave the camera footage to the police alongside copies of the texts, printed out and on USB, gave a statement, and they called a judge to get the TRO issued. I talked with them about other things like self-defense recommendations, overhauling my security system, getting a gun for protection, and so on. I was really anxious and just kept talking because it finally hit me that these people know where I live, and they're willing to make the 6 hours to harass me and get inside my home. The texts and voice messages haven't stopped. I unblocked and muted. There are direct and indirect threats. BM's mother is adamant that since I have an entire house to myself, a stable job, and no children, I will be housing HS or she'd give me the ass-whopping my dad should have. HS has only left one voice message about coming over later today and that she'll stand with me because that's what blood does. They help. When there was no response, she sent multiple texts telling me I need to be more understanding, that she's in a tough spot, and that she's moving in for at least a week until she's able to support herself. The 7 days to gain tenancy here. Additional clarification for people asking about the age gap. I'm a February 1st baby. HS is a November 29th baby. I say exactly 9 months because I'm not counting the weeks and days, just felt that people knowing we're the same age was relevant and gave context to why I have no relationship with her. I don't know if she was premature, I never asked, TBH, and there are people saying they have similar gaps around them, so I have nothing to add. Multiple people also asked if I hate HS and that I sound resentful for things she said as a child and for things her parents did. In my first post, I talked to someone in the comments and admitted that had this been a few years earlier, I may have helped HS without much thought. I know as children she was just parroting her parents. I don't fault her for that, nor do I blame her for BM abandoning me, but it's been 17 years. We've been legal adults for 7 of those years. She could have reached out at any point but didn't, and said she had no sister. I also could have reached out at any point but also didn't. I just moved on with my life. I was in therapy since I was abandoned, and it took me years to move on from no one on that side actually wanting me. Now she's making herself a problem. BM's mother aside. HS was sitting on my porch with a suitcase ready to force herself into my home. In life, she allowed herself to be driven 6 hours to my home, sat on my porch for half an hour, and then lied to police all after I said no multiple times. She never claimed me until she needed something, and now she's forcing herself into my life on the basis of being family. I don't hate her, that's too much energy, but I do resent her now alongside her grandmother and the rest of her family. I was ignored for years, and now I feel unsafe in my own home just because HS and those around her can't take no for an answer. This isn't about BM's affair. This is about HS and her family ruining my safe space, my home, with their crap. The past is a factor in that resentment now because, again, I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I didn't know what she looked like. But suddenly we're sisters because she needs someplace to stay. I definitely resent that. Also, I feel validated in my choices. Posting to Reddit, asking for and taking advice, listening to my dad. The attorney I spoke to pretty much said all the same things commenters have. Unblocking and muting to get an evidence of harassment, calling the cops and showing them the messages because it proves there was no implied invitation. This is apparently the biggest thing I had to worry about because even letting HS stay on my porch could have worked against me. Giving the cops the camera footage of HS and BM's mother looking for a spare key was also a good move. Even going about upgrading security, getting self-defense items, and asking the officers about self-defense recommendations and my wish to get a gun for protection works in my favor. It shows that even though this was HS' first offense, I don't feel safe and she's a major cause of that and I don't. So thank you again for all the advice. If they show up like they said, I'm gonna set off my security system and call the cops. Edit from a comment. It wasn't active, the TRO. when I posted the update because they hadn't been served yet. They were found at a hotel near my home and were served. My neighbor saw them and called the police. I was reporting the text, though. The TRO is on both HS and BM's mother. Update 3. I was going through the first messages sent to me and found one of the many I muted without reading. This is from a cousin of HS. Note: the order of info was edited to be better understood. A lot was blocks of text, so I tried to put it in order. AP cut contact with HS when she was 20. She covered BM's affair with Rando. AP stopped paying her tuition and cut her off financially. HS' work history is non-existent. She was kicked out by BM a month ago because she was sleeping with Rando and one of his sons. Said son turned 18 2 months ago. HS came home to hers and Rando's things on the curb and all the locks changed. Police weren't involved. The cousin doesn't know if BM told the boy's mother, but she did tell the entire family. Essentially said, "Protect you kids in marriage." HS claims she only slept with him on his birthday, but BM claims he was a minor when HS slept with him. The family is adamant about getting her somewhere safe to stay long-term because HS is pregnant. No one likes her but believe abandoning her is wrong due to her pregnancy. The cousin expresses doubt about the pregnancy. HS showed GM a positive pregnancy test, but no one else has been given any proof. HS has a history of lying. HS couch-surfed with those that don't have kids so far. She's borrowed someone's car without permission, taken expensive items to pawn, taken money from me for interview clothes and travel, then blew it on expensive mom and baby outfits. When cops are involved, she lies and has gotten someone arrested by claiming SA when they tried to have her removed from their property. The plot to get HS into my house was the idea of an uncle, one of GM's 3 sons. GM apparently brags/complains about me being young with no kids, a well-paid job, and a house I own. Essentially, this uncle said I had no responsibilities, disposable income, and plenty of room. Because no one wants to outright abandon HS, this was the best plan. The cousin: don't give an inch, not even a ride to a shelter. Someone tried, and she caused a scene, nearly got them arrested because she kept lying about the situation. Please read this. I read your 2 posts. Stay safe. Now for some comments. Comment 1. OP, great job of the cousin filling in these outrageous blanks. Wow. Comment 2. OP should keep in touch with his cousin to see what else is coming. Surely they aren't done yet. Comment: I figured there was a pregnancy involved when there was talk of meeting the minimum number of days for tenancy. They want her to stay long enough that you can't force her out quickly, making it likely that she has the baby, if actually pregnant. And how could you possibly kick out the baby? OP, please protect yourself, as I think this is only the beginning of it. Comment: honest worry about your holiday plans. I wouldn't leave your house/travel for Thanksgiving or Christmas. And be ready for her to make a scene on one of those days and try to get into the house if you have guests or porch pirate your stuff. Stay safe, OP. We're rooting for you. OP, definitely preparing for that. I've read all of Camper_Nomad's posts and the potential lengths HS and GM may go. Scary AF. My grandma, the real one, brought this up herself and suggested we just have it here. That way, if they pop up around holidays, all of us are present and ready for the BS. Thank you. Update 4. No major updates today. Texts and calls have all stopped. My entire neighborhood is on alert, and the family rotation continues. One of my friends stayed last night, and a different friend agreed to stay tonight. Today will be spent with my aunt, the one with a keychain and fisticuff bracelet, and grandma. No one showed up at my house in the middle of the night. I'm following the advice of multiple people, the first being about making an FU binder. My aunt suggested making transcripts of all the saved voice messages, which I think is a pretty good addition to this to go along with the USB drive of them, so that'll be part of what I do today. The second piece of advice I have saved is about documenting every day, even if nothing happens, in a spiral notebook. I started on this immediately. We will also be recording when I go to and from work or anywhere, TBH. Also, multiple people on the door screws. That was among the first things done when I bought the house, and my windows were all changed on purchase as well. They're impact windows, so it'll take a lot of effort to break them. My uncle has always been big on home safety, so he did all of that with me. Even though I'm next door to my dad and fairly close to the rest of the family, he always says, "I'm still a woman alone in a house. You can never be too safe." I feel a bit better with all the advice offered. If anyone is having similar trouble, take the advice offered in the comments. It really helped, and I'm grateful for all the help. Holiday vacations has officially been canceled and refunded. Always invest in travel insurance. A lot of stories shared with me have me on edge about leaving my home unattended. My neighbors offered to watch my house, but I'd feel more comfortable being present if something happens. So this year I'm going to be hosting Thanksgiving and potentially Christmas. My grandma suggested this, and she's getting really into it, so today might also be shopping for decorations. Thank you guys again. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Caught my wife sleeping with my brother right after his wife passed away from cancer, so I told everyone about their affair and cut them out of my life for good. I, 33 male, knew my wife, 31 female, all of my life. But she and I hadn't started dating until about 10 years ago. We went to high school together, though we weren't really in the same circles. I was more athletic and involved in sports, and she was a bit of a bookworm who spent her full time in the library. I hate to say it, but I hardly even noticed her in high school. But at a reunion we ran into each other and we really hit it off. I didn't even care about any of the other classmates in the room. I just wanted to talk to her. We ended up dating, and a year later we got married. It all happened fast, but we felt like it was right. For the past 10 years of our marriage, we have never questioned that. A little over a year ago, my sister-in-law was tragically diagnosed with lung cancer. The entire family was shattered by the news, especially my brother. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law wasn't able to fight off the cancer, and she passed away about 3 months after the diagnosis. It was a horrible tragedy for the entire family, and there was a hole left in our hearts. My wife had always been a very gentle, caring person, so she took it upon herself to make sure my brother was taken care of while he was in mourning. She would make food and bring it over to his house. She would make sure he was eating. She washed his clothes and made sure he had someone to talk to. From the way it sounded, she was a rock for him in the hardest time of his life. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that the two of them were sleeping together, but I was so wrong. The first instance where I noticed something was off was when I showed up at my brother's house one day after my wife had told me she was going over there. I had a key and I never knocked on his door when I went to visit, so I just walked in and hollered for them both. It took a minute for them to come and meet me, but they both came from the part of the house where the bedrooms were. Genuinely, I did not think anything could have been going on. I asked them what was going on, and they told me that they were just tidying up the room. The three of us spent the rest of the night together at his house. I noticed that they were sitting somewhat close on the couch, but I didn't think much of it. I trusted them. One night while my wife and I were both at home, she got a text message from my brother. She told me that she would be going over there the following day and helping him go through some of his wife's belongings. I didn't have a problem with it, but I was starting to feel like she was too much of a crutch for him. I suggested that maybe instead of going over there, we should offer to pay for therapy for him. I figured it might be nice for him to have a professional to talk to. She just brushed it off and said that she would talk to him about it and see what he said the following day. Now, I knew that packing up some of his wife's belongings and figuring out what to do with them would be a big task. That is a big step in moving forward for anyone. I was a little hurt that he hadn't asked me to help him. But again, my wife had been a major help to him since his wife passed. While I was driving home from work, I figured it might be nice to stop by and offer to help. I grabbed some takeout food and made my way over to my brother's house. When I unlocked the door to go in, I was about to holler and get their attention, but I heard some strange noises. They were unmistakably sex noises. I couldn't believe I was hearing something like that when my brother had just lost his wife. On top of that, he was there with my wife. I simply walked out of the house. I was shocked at the time and I didn't know how to process what I had just heard. I tried to rationalize it, thinking that maybe he had someone else there and it wasn't my wife. But when I got home and saw that she wasn't there, I knew that wasn't the case. I played it cool, thinking about how I wanted to move forward. I was 100% going to leave my wife and I was going to cut my brother off. Both of them completely shattered my trust. My wife returned home about an hour later and immediately went to take a shower. While she was in there, I walked into the bathroom and started brushing my teeth. It wasn't unusual for us to use the bathroom at the same time. That's one of the perks of married life, I guess. Her phone was on the counter, so I grabbed it while she was showering. I looked through her messages with my brother and found dozens of text messages where they had both been recounting the times they shared together. My brother was frequently asking her to come over because he wanted to feel her again. I scrolled back to around the time when my wife first started going to visit him. I found messages where they confessed their feelings for each other. Apparently, my brother had put the first feelers out for the relationship. He told my wife that he had always had feelings for her in high school, but he was too nervous to ask her out. She told him that she had felt the same way. She went so far to tell him that sometimes when she was sleeping with me, she would be imagining that it was him. I took screenshots of the messages and I sent them to myself before deleting them from her phone. I put it back down on the counter so she would never know that I even had them. I hated them both, and I wanted them to suffer for what they did. As angry as I was that they betrayed me, I couldn't believe that they would disrespect my brother's late wife the way that they had. They were both unbelievably selfish and they needed to be called out for it. I gathered several of my family members, mostly the core family who had the biggest impact on my and my brother's lives. My brother and my wife were there, sitting right next to each other. We had a peaceful dinner together, and toward the end, I just outright told everybody what I discovered. My brother and wife tried to make it seem like I was crazy and nothing was going on. Then, I pulled out my phone and read off quotes from the screenshots. They looked horrified as I read the messages. My mom asked my brother if what I said was true, and I could hear the sadness in her voice. Everybody yelled at both of them for how disrespectful it was to my sister-in-law. It hadn't even been 6 months since she had passed away, and he had started an affair with his sister-in-law. Everybody asked questions, and we found out that the affair started 2 months after his wife died. It was unbelievable to hear. Everybody was yelling at them and telling them that they were selfish and cold, and I didn't want to see them. My parents didn't think that I handled it the right way, but they were glad that I told everyone about it. They had all been feeling very sorry for him for his grief, but he was clearly not mourning in the same way as them. In the end, I divorced my wife and I'm happy now without her. She didn't ask for anything in the divorce, and if she did, I had enough evidence of her affair that she wouldn't have gotten it. Almost all of my family is extremely angry with my brother, and he hasn't been invited to any gatherings or events since they found out. I don't know if people are going to come around and forgive him or if he's going to stay in the doghouse. All I know is that I never want to see either of them again. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Just a friendly reminder before the video begins. You will hear 2 stories in this video, and both have new updates. Now on to the first story. My girlfriend's overbearing jealousy completely spoiled our Vegas trip, and I've had enough of it. 3 weeks ago, I went to Las Vegas with my girlfriend Laura, her best friend Sarah, and her boyfriend for a vacation getaway. We're all college students. We had just finished final exams, and we had been planning this trip for about 6 months. There were issues before we even got there. By the time we boarded, the plane was just about full. Sarah and her boyfriend got the last 2 seats together, but Laura and I were forced to sit apart from each other. No one wanted to give up or swap seats. I gave her the option of the 2 final seats. A little girl and her mom, or 2 high school/college volleyball girls. I sat in the window seat next to this extremely chatty 5-year-old girl and her mother in her late 20s or early 30s. I entertained the kid for about 3 hours of our 5 to 6 hour flight until she fell asleep. My older sister has a child about that girl's age, so I'm used to it. Once the little girl fell asleep, the mother was making small talk, asking how I was so good with children, general things, nothing invasive or anything. When we got off the plane, Laura was already livid. She said I didn't even look bothered by the fact that we didn't get to sit next to each other, almost like I enjoyed getting away from her. I mean, the flight sucks, and I would have much rather slept or been next to her, but I'm not going to mope around and make a bad situation already worse. It was 6 a.m. Who really wants to play with a 5-year-old for 3 hours anyways? Eventually, she got over it and apologized after Sarah talked her down about it. We go to our hotel on the Strip and check in, And it turns out they booked a single penthouse room through some promo Sarah's parents provided for the four of us. It wasn't terrible, but I had only met Sarah and her boyfriend maybe a handful of times before this trip. I would find out later talking to Sarah that Laura begged her to do it this way, despite Sarah's original plan to have us in joint rooms. We walked the strip the first day, and there were tons of very attractive girls walking. I mean, it's Vegas. I don't know what she expected, but I noticed, maybe after 15 minutes of walking, Laura was staring at me instead of looking at the sights like everyone else. She was watching my eyes as we walked, not like a, hey, look at me, give me attention, but more like her trying to see what or who I was looking at while we were walking. I told her she was missing the sight, and I told her that she had nothing to worry about. We went to this huge outlet mall, and every sales associate that tried to give me coupons or such, she would nearly throw a fit. I asked one of the girls working about a product Laura had interest in, and even then, Laura came over and basically awkwardly and tactlessly took hold of the conversation. It was the most embarrassing thing I've ever witnessed in my life. I apologized to the associate before we left. I felt so bad for her. Riding the bus to the night shows, Sarah's BF and I let them take the last two seats while we stood, hanging on to those support things. There was a couple in front of us that were obviously hammered, so drunk they weren't even holding on to anything. When the bus started moving, they both fell back, of course, and we caught them. Laura said later that we didn't know them and should have just let them fall instead of putting our hands on them. The third day, Laura and I didn't even go out of the hotel because she was feeling sick, so I stayed with her the entire day, which wasn't a big issue. But she didn't even want me to leave for food, had me use room service. She seemed happy and content sitting in the hotel room watching movies. The day before we were leaving, we ate at this nightclub restaurant place, and our server was a showgirl or call girl. I don't know the proper term, but she flirted with us so much. When she noticed how Laura was reacting, she just did it even more. I tried to play it down, but the damage was already done. I pretty much mentally checked out that day. I understand no one likes to see their so get flirted with, but I'm pretty sure it's that girl's job to try to tempt people into taking her card. Sarah's BF got hit on worse than me, and Sarah just laughed about it, even joked with the showgirl. I was ready to end the relationship as soon as we got back home. But when we got on the plane, she was smiling and happy, telling me about how she had seemingly a great time in Vegas. I brought up the trip once we were back home and alone, and she apologized and said she wasn't feeling like herself. I pushed her a bit more, and she eventually told me about a past ugly relationship where she was cheated on twice, and the guy treated her like dirt and tried to control her. It almost seemed like she was trying to guilt me into staying, and for the most part it was working. But I couldn't stop thinking about the trip. She basically deferred a lot of the blame onto a previous relationship and mood swings, though at first she said she didn't think she did anything wrong. I'm not perfect by any means, and I'm usually quick to get out of relationships to the point where I'm unsure if I'm running away too soon like I normally do, or if this is one of those situations where leaving is acceptable and the right thing to do. I'm not looking for something perfect. Everyone has flaws. Over the years I've realized this. But I've never been one to try to fix someone else, and it's something my older sister says is my biggest issue as a person. You keep looking for the whole package and you don't ever stick around long enough if you see a few missing pieces, is basically what she told me. I usually trust my sister's judgment, but I feel like she might be a bit off the mark this time. Laura has never acted like this before, but this was our first real outing. We typically spend time with her friends and just the two of us around college campus. It's been 3 weeks, and she's pretty much her normal self, but we have 2 other trips planned. One with Sarah and her BF and Laura's family, and another with a much larger group of people for the summer, about a month. I can't handle a repeat of Vegas. Am I trying to leave too fast? Should I stick around and see this through and work with her to fix it? Outside perspective. How do these things typically play out? More info. I have talked to her, and I was as firm and brutally honest as I could have been about it. I didn't let the Vegas trip slide despite her trying to push it away and make it disappear. Her words were that she would try her best to change, but she didn't know if she could, or if this was just how she had always been. She saw the wrong she did, and even her best friend told her that her behavior was unacceptable, but still she just seemed indifferent about whether she could change or not. I know trust issues are tough to overcome, but she seems to lack all types of motivation. And when I told her that basically I needed change or I was going to have to rethink our relationship, she sat there with a blank stare on her face, almost as if telling me to leave. I don't know if it was a guilt trip to make me feel sorry for her, if she doesn't think I'll actually leave, or her refusing to accept that she has to change or she will lose everyone close to her. Walking out immediately after 2 years together and this being the first time something like this has happened seems premature if the relationship is otherwise solid. Not to dismiss our relationship, but to me, spending hours in each other's dorm and time around campus is one thing, but actually interacting outside of it is huge to me. I feel like in the 2 years we've been dating that she's always had excuses to try to keep us like that. I'm an active person. I play sports for my college, and outside of that, she never wanted to do anything. Even going on the trip, she was so apprehensive about it that we nearly didn't even go with them. She used every excuse she could think of for us to spend another summer lazing around instead of doing stuff. I think maybe I've been too clueless or naive to pick up on the subtle warning signs that maybe my relationship has always been like this. Update. So after my post, I went and I talked to Laura's best friend, Sarah, basically asking her about Laura. I wanted to know if there was anything I should know about Laura's previous relationships or past that she wasn't going to tell me out of worry, embarrassment, or trauma that would explain her behavior. I explained to her that after what happened in Vegas, I was on the verge of ending the relationship, that I was so put off by her behavior that I couldn't handle being with her. Sarah was quick to tell me there wasn't anything, but I was skeptical. She seemed to be hiding something. Being Sarah's good friend, she told me to give her one more chance and made some last-minute plans for about 8 of us to go to the beach last weekend. Laura didn't want to go, obviously, and I didn't even try to force her to go. Sarah and a couple of the other girls convinced her to come along and that it would be fun to go as a big group. Of course, this beach trip went about as badly as I expected it to go. She wanted me to keep my shirt on the entire time we were there, despite everyone else, including herself, stripping down to a bathing suit. Once I took off my shirt, she would ask me every hour or so if I was ready to put it back on so I wouldn't get sunburned. Walking the boardwalk, every flock or group of girls we walked past, she would look at me to see if I was looking at them. And if I was looking, she would scold/guilt me. If I weren't looking, then she would get jealous and tell me that those girls were staring or looking at me. It was highly embarrassing and so obvious. At one moment, this beach volleyball lands next to our towel, and this girl comes to get it, and I hand it to her and she says thanks and kind of looks back at me as she's running back to her friends. The volleyball landed next to us 2-3 times and Laura was convinced that they, a group of 10 people, were doing it on purpose and sending the same girl to retrieve it so she could get a better look at me. I'll admit, I was already going to end our relationship just off those things prior, but what really set me off was when I was swimming. I was pretty far out near the restriction buoy, and I saw these two, brother and sister, maybe around 12 or 13, and they were obviously having trouble. I think they went too far out and got tired. Neither of them were strong swimmers, and I noticed they were drifting further and further, so I swam over and asked if they needed help getting back closer to shore. I swim and pull them both back closer to shore until they touched the bottom. They were both extremely grateful, and I heard the sister say that their parents told them never to go out that far. Laura asked me what I was doing with those kids out there. I told her I was helping them get back to shore, and she said, "Isn't that what lifeguards are for?" 2 of the couples sitting next to her looked mortified, but all I could do was shake my head. I broke up with her that night and told her I really hope she got the help she needed to be more comfortable with herself. She was overly dramatic, crying and sobbing, desperately telling me that she would change if I stayed. She said that she needed me to help her and that it would be entirely my fault that she was the way she was. I decided to leave before I said anything hurtful because I was getting angry, and that's when she blurted out that she was pregnant. I look at her and just roll my eyes and leave. I haven't had sex with her since her last period, purposely. I think she realized that because eventually she came out of the hotel room and yelled down the hall for me please not to go. I stopped at Sarah's hotel room just to inform her and her boyfriend that I was leaving. I drove myself for a reason. Sarah apologizes and admits to me that Laura wasn't even in an abusive relationship prior to me. Her ex-boyfriend went to coffee with a coworker who was also his childhood friend of 15 years, and Laura accused him of cheating on her emotionally. I think it's safe to say I dodged a bullet. I've deleted both of their numbers, and I don't plan on contacting any of them again. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Dad cheated with an aunt after my mom passed away of cancer, who despised me and banned me from their house, but Dad didn't say anything. Now he's homeless and begging for my help. I, 30F, was recently contacted by my father, who hasn't spoken to me for the past 10 years. 12 years back, my mom passed away after a really long and hard battle with brain cancer. It was a very difficult period of time for our family, but barely 6 months after she had passed away, I started noticing that my father would be gone for prolonged periods of time and wouldn't even tell me properly exactly where he was going. He would tell me that he was just going out with friends, who were not even in the city at that point in time. I started getting suspicious, and one day I followed him to see where he was going and realized that he was paying frequent visits to my single aunt's house. My aunt was 3 years younger than my mother and had 2 kids, a son and a daughter, who were slightly older than me with her previous husband, but they had gotten divorced just after a year of marriage and he had left her with those kids since he did not want custody. She was raising them with a child support and alimony that she got from her previous marriage, so she was pretty well off and money was not a problem for her, as her ex-husband was rich. My mother and my aunt were pretty close, and my aunt had been there for my mom all along right until her last breath. So, it was quite shocking for me to see that my dad was visiting her. After following him for a couple of more days, I finally gathered up the courage to actually ring the bell at her house and see what was going on in there. The day that I did that, my aunt opened the door, and once I was in there, I confronted them and asked them what was going on since my father had been lying to me about where he was, and I couldn't understand why he was visiting my aunt so frequently. So, the 2 of them finally told me that they were in a relationship and had been for the last couple of years since my mother's diagnosis. They did not want to hurt my mom since she had limited time and did not want to stress her out even more by revealing their relationship. But now that she was gone, they could finally be together, and my dad even expected me to understand that it was not easy for him to deal with my mother's condition after so many years of being together, and he was in denial and was already grieving when my mother had been diagnosed, which is when he had found solace in talking to my aunt, and that had gradually developed into this sort of a relationship. I was pissed, obviously, and I left that day with no intention of ever interacting with my aunt again. They tried to stop me and talk to me, but I just left after telling them that they disgusted me, that both of them were terrible people who had betrayed my mother in the worst possible way. I'm not proud of it, but I cursed at both of them really badly, and then I finally went back home. That day, when my dad came back home later that evening, he told me that I had behaved at my aunt's house was just unacceptable. And he was also not cool with the fact that I had been stalking him and following him around for the past couple of days. So, he expected me to apologize, but I told him that I was not going to do any of that and that he could continue playing happy family with my aunt since I was moving out and going back to college since I did not want anything to do with him anymore. I had taken a bit of a break from college so that I could just be with my father in this trying time. But then when I realized that he had already found somebody, I was so disgusted that I didn't even want to go back. After I went back to college, my dad sent me an email and said that he was selling the house that I had grown up in and was moving in with my aunt. Not only that, but he had hoped that I would be able to accept the fact that he was finally trying to move on with his life and be happy. But since I hadn't and I had not even bothered to reach out to him or my aunt and apologize for my behavior, he believed that we shouldn't interact for some time. He said that my aunt and my cousins did not want me to visit them. I was basically banned from their house because of my behavior, and he agreed with them, so he did not defend me either, and it was very unlikely that we would be seeing each other anytime soon. That email broke my heart, but it is what it is, and I did not bother to even reply to him. My parents and my grandparents had a college fund set aside for me, which I got access to as soon as I turned 18, so I did not have to worry about my expenses after that. And once I graduated, I started working immediately because I did not want to rely on my grandparents for money anymore. I was just 20 years old back then, and I had believed that eventually maybe my father would come back to his senses and leave my aunt, and then we would be able to sort things out between us, but that never happened. In fact, when they went public with their relationship, everybody in my mother's family cut my dad and my aunt off because it was just so disturbing. Even my grandparents did not speak to their daughter anymore just because of how messed up what they were doing was. So, for the past 10 years, I have had absolutely no contact with either of them, and I did not know what they were up to either. I had heard in the middle that maybe they had moved away from here, but I was too busy at the time so I never followed up on it, and even though I missed my father, I never tried to get in touch with him. Then, about a week ago, I received a call from my father after 10 years of not having any contact. At first, I didn't have that number saved, so I let it ring, but the second time that he called me, I answered the call, and as soon as I heard his voice on the other end, I was numb, and I didn't even know what to do. Anyway, after I responded, he told me that it was very important for me to talk to him because he needed my help, and he had nobody else he could count on at the moment. So, I was the only person who could drag him out of this mess. Apparently, he was in a retirement home and had been there for the past 3 months. All this was happening to him because of my aunt and her kids who had officially taken things way too far. He told me that after they went public with their relationship, everybody cut him off and they relocated to the suburbs so they could be away from the city and everybody else, since it had become very obvious to them that nobody wanted to keep in touch with them after they had done, and understandably so. Things had been great for a while. Her children were grown up anyway, so they were living on their own and would only visit once or twice a month, but every time that they would visit, they would take a bunch of money from him and my aunt to fund their lifestyle. And after a couple of years, he told my aunt that he could not support this kind of behavior anymore and that they needed to put an end to it. That's when the problem started because my aunt believed that as his parents, they should be supporting their children no matter what, and age should not factor in. So, after a lot of fights, they decided that my dad would not give them any money, but my aunt would continue to support them financially. That went on for a couple more years, but then a few months ago, her kids came to her and demanded an exorbitant amount of money because they were planning on starting their own business, but they did not want to invest their own money in it. So, they were asking my aunt and my father to invest. My aunt tried really hard to get him to invest in their business, but he had put his foot down and had said that he was not going to do anything until he was sure that they would be able to, since neither of them had any practical knowledge and they didn't even have a proper business model to go ahead with. So, they had been fighting about that recently, and eventually my aunt decided that she was not willing to live with him anymore. They had never married, so they did not have a formal agreement. And the house that they were living in actually belonged to her. So, she decided to kick him out, and for the last couple of months he had been living in a retirement home. The only reason he had even been put up in a retirement home was because my cousins wanted money from him and for the investment. They were treating him nicely for now. But a couple of weeks ago they had visited him and had told him that he only had 1 month to make up his mind whether or not he would be willing to help them with the money, and if he said no, they were going to stop paying for his stay at the retirement home as well, and he would have to find somewhere to live for himself. The problem was that everybody believed that he had a lot of money and he was kind of comfortable, but unfortunately, my father's company had not been doing too well in the past few years after the pandemic, so he was not as rich as everybody had assumed him to be. So, there was no way that he could come up with the kind of money that they were asking of him, even if he had wanted to. So now, he had been put in a very difficult position where he was losing out on both sides, and he had no idea what to do or how to go ahead because either way he was screwed, and he was calling me for help because he believed that I was doing well in life and maybe I could buy him something or at least allow him to live with me for the next couple of months until he was able to figure out a way to get out of this mess. Because even if he said that he was not going to invest in their business, he was sure that my cousins would ask him to pay them back the amount that they had put in for his stay at home. It was just a whole mess, and even hearing it made me sick because I could not believe that people could stoop down to such levels and be so disgusting. I told my father that I needed some time to think about it, but honestly, I don't think that I will be able to help him out here because yes, I am doing well for myself, but we have not been in touch for the past 10 years, and I don't want to go out of my way to help somebody who never bothered to look out for me when it was his turn. So, despite telling him that I would think about it on the phone, after a couple of days, I blocked his number so that he would not be able to reach out to me again. I'm already swamped at work, so I don't need to worry about this as well. Besides, I have a personal life of my own and I need to save up for my future as well because I'm planning on getting married to my boyfriend in a couple of years. We have been together since college, and next year we plan on getting married since we have been talking about this for almost 1 year now. He and I are living separately right now because of his work, but soon enough he will be back and we will be living together. Then, I don't think I will be able to support my father either financially or by letting him live with me, so I don't see the point in helping him out right now only to kick him out eventually. Instead of putting him through all of that, I'm just choosing not to help him at all. He can just come clean to everybody and let them know that he does not have the kind of money that they have assumed he does because his company has not been doing well, and after that, he can use whatever money he has to rent an apartment and live there. I think it's a fair enough solution. But then, I guess after I blocked him, he decided to reach out to my grandparents. Now, I don't know if it's because of their advanced age or something, but my grandparents suddenly think that I should sort things out with my father before I get married because he is trying to reach out to me and fix things with me, and they believe that I should give him a second chance now by letting him live with me at the very least before he sets out on a search to find an apartment that will suit him. I find the switch up in their behavior very weird because for the longest time, they have hated both my father and my aunt and have always told me that I should never forgive them because what they did was just not acceptable. But now, all of a sudden, they think that I should make amends with my father and bury the hatchet. It just doesn't make any sense to me. When I tried to argue with them about this, they made me feel like the bad guy and said that I was being heartless and whatnot. So, I'm just really confused about what to do because if my decision had my grandparents' stamp of approval on it, I would not be worried about whether I was doing the right thing or not, but here I'm not so sure anymore. I have spoken to my boyfriend as well, and he isn't too sure about it either. So, I have no idea what to do, and since this is too personal to be sharing with my friends, I am here on Reddit to ask if I'm making the right decision or not. So, am I the asshole for not wanting to help my father out after 10 years of no contact? Date 1. So, after reading the comments, I decided to go ahead with my decision, and I told my grandparents that I did not want to be helping out my father and my decision was final. After all, I was an adult now, and I don't think I owe it to anybody to help them in their time of trouble because ultimately my father had never looked out for me, even when I was younger. We were not particularly close. A lot of you had been asking me about my relationship with my father during my childhood, and like I said, we were not close and he was mostly working during the day. And even when he would come back, he never tried to bond with me like a daughter. I thought that my mother's diagnosis would bring our family closer because he had started taking a lot of time off from work to be at home since his wife was dying, but unfortunately, his relationship with me still did not change. Instead, he thought that it would be more appropriate to spend that time creating a bond with his sister-in-law instead. So that was his choice. Now, I don't think I owe anything to a man who did that to my deceased mother when she was fighting to survive. It makes me think that even if she had somehow survived and still been alive today, would my father have chosen her or my aunt? Because from what he had told me, their relationship had started ever since my mother had told us all about her diagnosis. Anyway, that's all irrelevant now because nothing really worked out for him. The only people who are on his side right now are my grandparents, and I really find it very confusing, but I've told my grandparents that I'm not going to be helping him out, and if they want to be mad about it, they are free to do so. It's not going to affect my decision. I have a life ahead of me. I cannot take on my father as a burden, and my choice of words might upset some people, but right now, he is a burden to me. I've also discussed everything with my boyfriend, and he thinks that I'm doing the right thing, so nothing else really matters because I know that he's never going to sugarcoat stuff for me and tell me that I'm doing the right thing if he doesn't agree with it. So, my conscience is clear and I don't feel bad about anything. Update 2. Hi, so last week I texted my grandparents and told them that I did not want to help my dad out and that was my final decision. So they could not manipulate or guilt-trip me into changing my mind. For a few days, they did not try to talk to me and just left my message on read. But then today they decided that they were going to pay me a visit and try to change my mind in person. I don't know why they thought that it would work because I think I had made it pretty clear in my message that I did not want them to stress me out right now since I'm really busy at work. Anyway, they showed up at my house as I had returned from work, and I was pretty exhausted, so I was in no mood to entertain any of their nonsense, and I got that right out of the way itself. As soon as they rang the bell, I told them that I was very tired and I did not want to discuss anything right now because it would be too emotionally heavy, and I was just not ready for it. But they still came inside and started talking about how upset my father was that I was treating him like this and that they really believed that I should have some more compassion and be a little more humane towards him. I was very irritated, so I decided to just let them speak and then eventually they would be able to get the hint and just leave because I did not want to engage in the conversation and end up fighting with them since that would only prolong everything. So, I decided to keep my mouth shut for a while, but they did not show any signs of stopping and just went on talking and talking about how hurt my father was and how he was suffering in that retirement home. And then the worst happened. A couple of days ago, my cousins had threatened him and said that they were going to have to kick him out of the retirement home and stop paying for his stay there if he did not cough up the money that they wanted for the business. He told them that he did not have that kind of money anymore, he also had to save for the future, and his company was not doing too well. So, My cousins told him that they were to have him kicked out and he would also have to pay them back for the time that he had spent there already since he had just wasted their time. Now my dad did not have anywhere else to go and was literally pleading with my grandparents to convince me to let him stay with me here in my house until he was able to find a place of his own. But even that would take some time because he would also have to look after his company and it took up large chunks of his time during the day, and in the evening he was too tired to go out scouting for apartments. So, my grandparents kept drilling it into my head that I was literally his only hope and I absolutely had to help him. I was getting pretty annoyed, and after some time when I realized that they were not going to shut up, I decided to turn the tables and ask them if they felt so strongly about the situation. Why were they not helping my dad out themselves? They had an extra guest room in their house as well, from what I knew, and they could very well afford to help him out, so there was no reason for them to be pawning him off on me instead of doing it themselves since they had made it clear to me that they were feeling bad for him. Besides, I really did not feel bad for my father as much as they did. The problem that they were telling me about almost felt like an excuse for not trying to get his life in order himself, and that's not how things work with me. If he can afford an apartment of his own, he should just get out of that retirement home and find one for himself. There is no need for him to be acting like a victim of something terrible when he has the means to do something and get his life back on track. Even if his company is not doing well, he can still turn things around, but instead, he's just choosing to give up and act like the victim in the situation. I don't have any sympathy for people who don't have any fighting spirit, and that's what it looks like is happening with my father right now, so I don't want to get involved there at all. Anyway, when I asked my grandparents why they were not helping him out, they started coming up with excuses about how it would be weird for them since he had done something so wrong to their deceased daughter by cheating on her, and it would be very draining for them. And I was surprised that they thought that these were perfect excuses for them, but it did not apply to me since him cheating on my mother with my aunt had really broken my heart as well. So, I could say literally the same thing and get out of it like they were trying to do. When I brought these things up with them, we got into a very bad fight. They accused me of being heartless and having no compassion once again, and I was so exhausted that I just didn't even bother to argue with them. I told them that I did not want to speak to them about this anymore, and then they left. So, I don't know if I'm going to be talking to them because the way that they are behaving is very unreasonable and I can't even understand why they're acting like this. But it's fine, I guess. I have made my decision very clear to them, and now hopefully they are not going to try and force me to change my mind again. Update 3. So, a couple of months have passed since I last spoke to my father, and 2 months back, even my grandparents stopped speaking to me. I was kind of unhappy about the way things were turning out to be and was feeling very lonely since even my boyfriend was not with me and would only get to visit me once or twice every couple of weeks. But a few days back, he moved back here because he was done with his project, and now we are officially engaged and are finally going to start preparing for the wedding because it's going to happen by the beginning of next year and we just have 7 or 8 months to go. We announced it on social media yesterday and I posted a picture of myself with a ring on my finger and a few photos of me hugging him. My grandparents are not active on social media, but I'm sure that people must have told them about the engagement, and since there was a party as well, they must have gotten to know about it, but they still did not even congratulate me. He had thrown an engagement party as well, and it took place last night itself. He had taken me out for a drive in the evening and I kind of guessed that he was going to propose, but I did not exactly know what to anticipate. Anyway, we went to a pretty romantic spot that meant something to us, and that's where he proposed, and on our way back home, he told me that he had also organized a party in our honor and had invited all our friends and family, at least the people who were on good terms with us. So, after I got back home, I changed into clothes, and then we went to the restaurant and spent the rest of the night with our loved ones. Obviously, my grandparents had been invited to this event. My fiancé had told me that, in spite of our differences, they had always been there for us every step of the way during the past 10 years, and he wanted them to be present. My grandparents rejected the invitation, and he did not want to break my heart yesterday, so we did not talk about it. But this morning, when I talked about it and expressed my disappointment with the fact that neither had my grandparents been present at my engagement party, nor had they congratulated me after that, he told me the truth. I had assumed that he hadn't even invited them in the first place given how things were going with us. But to know that they had been invited and they had decided not to attend was just so humiliating. I can't even understand why they are suddenly so passionate about helping my father out. It does not make any sense, but I guess that seems like it's worth it to cut me off, and then I can't say anything to them. To each their own, so whatever. Date for Hey everyone, so I'm getting married in a month, and the invitations have been sent out. My grandparents did not receive one because a couple of weeks ago, I finally figured out why they were so keen on me helping my father out. So, my dad and I had not been in touch ever since the last phone call that he had made to me, and I had decided that I did not want to help him, so I blocked him instead. Anyway, he did not speak to me until a couple of weeks back when he finally reached out to me and wrote me an email explaining everything. So, my grandparents had known about my aunt's affair with my father all along, right from the beginning. As soon as they had started seeing each other romantically, she had come clean to them and had said that she even wanted to tell my mother about it. But they were the ones who had advised them to keep it under wraps because my mother was already suffering from cancer. She did not have much time left, so it was better to not get into it and tell her the truth because that would only hurt her for however long she was here for. After that, everything had been an act, and they had kept in touch with my aunt and my dad throughout the past 10 years, but kept making it seem like they hated him and my aunt because they did not want to alienate me. It broke my trust in such a way that I don't think I can ever get over, and I'm glad that none of them are in my life anymore. They deserve each other. My father had basically blackmailed my grandparents into trying to get them to convince me to help him out, but when they failed, he decided that there was no point in keeping their secret anymore and that I should know the truth, which is why he had sent me that email and had even attached proof of everything that he was telling me to be true. I'm quite shaken up because of that because it's not easy to learn that everything you had believed for the past decade was all a bunch of lies. But I'm trying to deal with it and cope. It helps that I have the wedding to look forward to because it's keeping me distracted, and then my fiancé and I are going to go on our honeymoon. Hopefully that will take my mind off of these things, but eventually, I hope to be able to move on for good. I am just lucky that I have such a great partner beside me to help me deal with all of this. I'm totally grateful for that. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I gave my estranged dad a chance and invited him to my wedding, but he refused to walk me down the aisle because his wife and golden child said it's only for them. I, 30F, am getting married in about a month to my best friend, 35M. I did not grow up knowing my dad, 55M, very well, as him and my mom divorced when I was an infant. He remarried and had several kids with his new wife, who hates my very existence. There was a lot of hurtful things done when I was growing up, like not being allowed in her house when I visited, that led me to be estranged from my father. He never really made much of an effort, but after I was 18, I completely cut him off for my mental health and stopped answering the few calls he attempted. He tried to get into contact every once in a while over the years, but I honestly just ignored him. I was hurt and angry. About a year ago, I got back into contact with some extended family on his side and have been forging a good bond with all of them. I invited them all to our wedding and they have been amazing. Eventually, I started speaking with my dad as well back around Christmas, and it was tense at first, but I decided to just give him a chance. We have slowly been getting a semblance of a relationship back, and I saw him in person with my fiancé a couple months ago. His wife is not pleased at all, and apparently their kids, my half-siblings, all adults, are also upset about it. I think there were threats of divorce, but my dad still decided to go to my wedding. After a ton of thought, I asked my dad if he wanted to walk me down the aisle, as I had been hopeful for a better relationship, but he turned me down. I wouldn't be as upset if he gave a generic excuse, but he told me his wife and other daughter requested he does not walk me down the aisle, as that is reserved for his other daughter and not me. I am super hurt and not even sure what to reply to that with. He offered to stand at the front and give me away instead, but that isn't what I want. My fiancé thinks we should uninvite him and move on, but I'm not sure if that is the best course of action. He is coming from out of state with the rest of his family, so he already bought a plane ticket and hotel room. Part of me thinks to just politely turn him down, have him as a regular guest, and then just stop talking to him again after the wedding. My mom isn't coming to my wedding because she lives really far away, so I don't really have any other immediate family coming. I'm not sure what the best course of action is, and the wedding is getting super close, so I have to make a decision soon. Edit. While this post has blown up, thank you all so much for the advice and comforting words. To answer some common questions I am seeing. No, his wife and my half-siblings are not attending the wedding. I invited them, but they won't even meet me, let alone go to the wedding. He has 2 sons and a daughter with this new wife, all in their 20s. I am not sure if my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmom. My mom, through all her faults, never actually said a bad word about him. He did marry my stepmom by the time I was 2 years old though, so there wasn't much time in between marriages. They are also very Christian in the worst way, as in they don't really follow what they claim to believe. My mom cannot fly as she has panic attacks. She also is actually a worse parent than my dad in a lot of ways, believe it or not. I have no male relatives to walk me down the aisle. I also never wanted him to give me away, as I think that is dumb. I just wanted my dad to act like my dad for one moment. My fiancé and I have decided to walk down the aisle together as one of you suggested, so that part is settled. I'll update everyone once I decide what to do and if there is any response. Now for some comments. Comment 1. Do you want this rude, mean stranger at your wedding, or do you not? He isn't going to suddenly turn into a nice person or good father to you if you let him come. I would absolutely not involve him in the ceremony in any way. Like, he doesn't get a seat at the front, he doesn't get to speak or stand or do anything. Perhaps you and your fiancé would consider walking down the aisle together or on your own. It does not have to be with a father figure, especially not this one who doesn't see you as a daughter. Do what is right for you. Your wedding doesn't exist to fix your family. Comment 2. Yes, all of this. Stop. I'd hate for you to look at wedding photos 10 years down the road and be sad because this POS is in photos with you. You're a gem for wanting to try and make things work, and he's a dick and an idiot for making little to no effort. I'm sorry. Opie. That is a great point about the pictures. That is my most important thing for the wedding, so having him in a ton of the pictures will just make me sad when I look back. Comment 3. Hey OP. I don't have any great words of wisdom for you, other than to say that sucks and to send you a big dad hug. It's what your dad should be giving you as he walks you down the aisle. But in its absence, please accept a hug from a random interdad who is proud of you and wishes you a wonderful wedding day. Also, it's not your responsibility that your dad has bought a plane ticket and hotel room. Kids of emotionally unavailable parents spend all their time trying to look after their parents' emotional needs and the hopes that their parents might eventually see them and love them. You don't need to look after your dad anymore. He made his choice. Listen to your fiancé. It's not now and has never been okay for your dad to hurt you. He made his choice to appease his wife rather than being fully with you on your big day. It's okay for you to make your choice to have your wedding without him. It might feel like it would be nice to have immediate family at your wedding, but really, having him there would most likely just be a reminder of the love and support you needed and deserved as a child, and that you never received. Opie. Thank you so much, Internet Dad. I needed to hear this. My mom isn't much better, but I gave up any hope with her a long time ago. Seems like I need to give up hope with my dad as well. On the bright side, my aunt and her family are amazing people, so they will be great at the wedding regardless. Update. Hello everyone. Just wanted to start by saying thank you so much for your kind words and advice to my original post. It made me feel so much better. We had an amazing wedding and honeymoon. Everything went really well. My husband wants to thank everyone who said some form of, listen to your fiancé, haha. I'll start with what happened right after my 30th last post. I did uninvite my dad 50M from my wedding. The whole interaction was too hurtful to let go of. Before telling him I was uninviting him, I spoke with my aunt/his sister, Sandy, 50SF, who was furious at her brother for what he said to me. She has been such a great support of me and my husband, which has been amazing, honestly. After I sent my dad an email detailing how hurtful he had been and that he was uninvited, Sandy called him and yelled at him for being an ass. He replied to my email with a bunch of nonsense deflection about how he has to make sure both sides are happy, but apparently told Sandy, not me, he was sorry and that it was a miscommunication. He claims to Sandy that he was only trying to negotiate with me and that he would have walked me down the aisle if that was what I really wanted. I highly doubt that. My MIL, who is extremely conservative and religious, actually said my dad needed to grow some balls, which shocked literally everyone. Haha. I replied to him that I stood firm in my decision to uninvite and to not contact me again until after the wedding, but that if he did contact me at all, it better be with the understanding that he needs to be present in my life the same way he is his other kids, otherwise to not reach out again. Around this time, right before the wedding, I called my mom and asked her about what really happened with her and my dad when I was a baby, because she never talked about it with me growing up. Unlike my dad and stepmom, my mom never once said anything bad about my dad to me. She was always neutral/positive about him, which I have since thanked her for, as it let me come to my own conclusions about what a deadbeat he is. My mom and I had a good cry about everything, and she let me know how abusive and awful my dad was to her when I was a baby after they split up. I also found out that he married his new wife when I was less than a year old, which is insane considering my parents were still 100% together the day I was born. Sandy swears up and down that she introduced my dad and stepmom to each other after my parents split, as they, stepmom and Sandy, were classmates in college. I don't really care either way at this point. It is just interesting to see how no one has a clear idea of what happened. My thought is that they were cheating and then used Sandy to introduce them to cover up their behavior. Keep in mind they are all very Christian, even though they clearly don't follow any of their religious teachings. I didn't hear anything from my dad during the wedding, and Sandy and her family still came. We all had a blast and everyone was so happy for us. The pictures turned out great, and there isn't anyone in them that I wish I could Photoshop out, so I definitely knew uninviting my dad ended up being the best decision we could make. I talked to Sandy about my dad over the holidays, and she said that him and his wife/kids were refusing to go to any family dinners or parties because they are upset that everyone else talks to me. I have been in regular contact with Sandy, my Uncle Jerry, and all of their kids, which makes my stepmom feel betrayed. Sandy is pissed at her because they used to be friends but never understood what her issue was with me. I found out my stepmom treated me like crap the second she had her first kid when I was still a toddler, which probably doesn't surprise anyone. I didn't hear from my dad all through December, but finally in late January, I got a random email from him. He sent a long email blaming me for him not being in my life, telling me his wife and kids are more important, but that we need to still be in each other's lives. It was the most terrible email he had sent me so far and completely disregarded my wishes back in October when I told him to not contact me unless he was going to treat me like his actual child. I ended up not responding and just blocking his email. I also told Sandy to not share any of the pictures or videos from the wedding with him and to not talk about me with him. I think this will be the end of the relationship with him, since he clearly is incapable of being a parent to me. I feel a lot more at peace with everything that happened, and I am completely okay with how it all turned out. One commenter on my original post said something along the lines of not knowing if my dad would have been a bad parent since he wasn't around, and that really has stuck with me. Thinking about it now, he probably would have been even worse had he actually been in my life. Unfortunately, both my parents are emotionally stunted, but I made a good use of the life that was handed to me and will hopefully break the cycle with my own kids one day. I didn't mention in my last post that my husband and I are going to be moving to the same state as my family in the next year. I was worried at first being closer to my dad, but honestly, he and his bitter wife and kids can do whatever they want. I'm just going to live my life how I want to. We were planning on moving to the state before I ever got back in contact with my family, so we will continue to do what is best for us. Anyways, thank you again, kind Redditors. You really helped me not feel sad or upset for my wedding day. Comment, Lady L. I'm so glad that you had a wonderful wedding. I wish you and your hubby the best in the future. Live the best of your life with hope, faith, and love. Best revenge you can have. P.S. Something to think about. Stepmom may have told your step-siblings that daddy had an affair and that may be why they hate you. Now on to the next story. Story 6. I think my girlfriend of 4 years is going to leave me for her dying ex-boyfriend and first love. The original post is by you/throwaway03044, posted January 10, 2019. I saw their messages last week and I haven't been the same since. I borrowed her old iPad for work purposes and her Facebook account was still logged in on the device. I was going to log in on my Messenger because I forgot my phone at home and I was going to message her. But then I saw that she had messages from her ex-boyfriend. Let's call him Andre. Her and Andre dated for 2 years. They were each other's first love, and she never told me what happened between them. I met her a year and some months after they broke up when I went on a trip with my family to California. I didn't know anything about him other than the fact that they dated sometime in high school and college. When I met her, we instantly hit it off. She showed me around LA, and me living in Australia wasn't a problem. We were in a long-distance relationship for a year until I saved up enough money to move out of my country for her. Other than that, it took me months to look for a job in Los Angeles so that I would be financially secure when I got there. 3 years later, we're still going strong, or so I thought. When I clicked on their conversation out of curiosity, I immediately noticed the kiss and heart emojis. Right then, I knew what was happening. I don't want to go on about the details, but the only message that stood out was her talking about leaving me for a few months so that she could take care of him. He has cancer. It's at stage 1, but he reckons he's going to die. On one of his messages to her, he asked if she would visit him in his house, and I'm pretty sure she did because they mentioned how they had a great time together and that it was good to catch up. Well, it's been a week since I found out. She doesn't know that I know, or that I took her old iPad out of its box and that I had spent 2 days reading their messages. She has no idea at all. She thinks everything is okay between us, but I actually want to cry for a long time and that I want to physically hurt myself. I have no friends in LA. All of them are back home and they're all living their own lives now. I don't want to talk about it to anyone because thinking too deeply about it hurts. I guess when it all comes down to it, she never really loved me, and I'm still trying to accept that. I don't know how to approach this. I have written my resignation letter for work and I have messaged my parents that I was going to go home sometime next month. I did both when I was extremely upset. I just need advice on how to approach this. I don't want to talk to her about it at all. I can't even look her in the eye without wanting to break down. Please help me on what to do and how to approach it correctly. As of now, I'm thinking of leaving while she's at work. Update 1. January 11th, 2019. I finally talked to my girlfriend about it and, unfortunately, she is now my ex-girlfriend. A lot of things that I never expected to happen did happen in a span of hours. As soon as she opened the door to our apartment, I could tell that she was already starting to cry. Seeing her so vulnerable like that also hurt because I didn't want to put her in that position. I had to constantly remind myself that none of this was my fault. We sat down. There were lots of tears. I thought I would be bitter, angry, and that I would be screaming at her the whole time, but I felt disappointed instead. I told her that I saw the messages and explained how I ended up scrolling through their whole conversation. She kept reasoning that she just felt sorry for him and that she didn't know how to say no to him because they go all the way back. Then I told her that we go more way back than they ever did. I was there through her lowest point. I helped her get up. She admitted that they had intimacy more than 3 times. I saw it coming. I had a gut feeling, but hearing her confirm it hurt so much. At that point, I was full on crying. I can't remember some of the things that happened because my mind was all over the place. It still is now. I remember telling her that I was done, that whatever we had was over. She kneeled in front of me and asked me to forgive her. I don't think I ever will. I can't tolerate people who cheat. By that point, 1/3 of my clothes were packed up. Obviously, she feels happier with him if she can do this to me. When I posted my first post, a Redditor approached me and offered me a place to stay. His place was only around 15 minutes away from ours and he picked me up. He'll also help me sell a lot of my stuff that I can't bring back home and will help me gather all my things back in my apartment. We both agreed that I don't mention him in this post. I'm glad that I really opened up to this community instead of keeping it to myself. Thank you to everyone who also offered me a place. It's almost 3 a.m. I'm heartbroken as ever, but I'm trying my best. I'm sending my resignation letter to work this morning. Every person in my family now knows my situation here and have offered support. I'll be flying home as soon as possible. To all my Aussie mates, if you live near/around Chapel Hill, let me know. America, you were great, but now it's time to come home. Thanks for the help, everyone. Edit. I'm crying again, not because I got cheated on, but because I realized that there is a whole world out there that cares a lot for my well-being. I almost can't believe I looked at hurting myself as an option to get away from the pain. I am really overwhelmed and also thankful for this community. Anthony and his wife, the Redditor who helped me, says this has been the most wholesome thing that ever happened to him. I may have lost a girlfriend and a future wife, but I gained heaps of friends and even friends for a lifetime. Other than that, I am feeling better. Still feels surreal that she's gone. But what can a bloke do? She made her choice, so I made mine. I woke up to multiple messages from her family saying that I shouldn't rush things and that she's stupid and makes mistakes like everyone else. It sucks that I may not be able to see her family for a long time. They were great people. I thanked them and said that although I believe in second chances and everyone makes mistakes, cheating is a choice, not a mistake. X also emailed me around 5 o'clock in the morning. The email was too long. My eyes hurt from crying, so I junked it straight away. I miss her like crazy. I know it will take a lot of time to heal me, but I guess I can wait. P.S. I'll message my newfound Aussie friends when I go through all the comments. Exact date of my flight hasn't been sorted out yet, but I'm hoping I'll be home by next month. Update 2. February 17th, 2019. Hi everyone. I know I promised an update as soon as I landed in Australia. A lot of things just happened after my last update and I genuinely haven't thought about letting everyone know that I'm okay and safe. I didn't get to sell all of my stuff in a short amount of time, but I managed to give it out to people who really needed it. That alone made me feel a lot better about the whole situation. It was a lot of electronics that I can't afford to and possibly bring back home, like the TV I bought for my ex that she really loved, the microwave, and my PS4. I'm in Australia now and not everything is going as planned, but whatever situation I'm in right now is at least okay. The cherry on top of all this is my brother verbally abusing me over something stupid I said about the cancer guy while drunk. It was something like, hope he dies in a painful way, and it got him all worked up, considering one of closest friends did die in a painful way. To cut the story short, I didn't end up going to Brisbane to live with him and am now living with my parents in Perth, unmotivated and jobless. I feel so effing hopeless and completely miss my ex, but I can't do anything about it other than suck. Thanks to everyone for being a friend. I'm sorry to people I disappointed and promised to see in Brisbane. I really haven't been out partying like what I thought. /Scream 1991. As someone who is also going through a breakup, it will eventually get better, my friend. Stay active and positive and things will rebuild. OP. I can't find the motivation to do anything, and even if I did do something, my mind will find a way to make me feel hopeless and all I want to do is lay down and cry until I feel better. It's an endless cycle. Post from the OP's younger brother, Alex, posted August 3, 2020. Original title. My brother posted here asking for advice regarding his girlfriend who was going to leave him for his ex. I want to find the post. He passed away and I want to know why he did what he did. I've been skimming for a while without an account, putting in keywords on the search bar. I'm desperate to see, please help. I am his younger brother. He passed away to suicide 2 months ago. He moved all the way to America from Australia with his girlfriend that he met there while on holidays. They broke up because he found out she cheated on him with her ex-boyfriend. I remember when we were talking about the vulnerable situation he was in and he told me he met some people from a Reddit relationship advice that helped him transition from America to Australia again. He said he was also going to meet people in Chapel Hill before hit the fan between him and our older brother. He would have been 28 to 29 years old when he posted. Please help me, I just want to see his account. I want to know what was on his mind. I need that closure. In the comments, Alex, please help me. I'm desperate to see and know what the full story was. She caused a massive scar on my family and I don't think we will ever recover from his passing. Commenter. First off, I'm sorry for your loss. I'd be really careful reading his posts if you find them. Make sure you can handle it. I can only imagine how hard it would be to do something like that. Please look out for your mental health. You could just make things worse by moving forward with this. I suggest you maybe discuss this with a therapist before reading into anything. You want to make sure this will absolutely help you get closure and start to heal, as much as one can. If you're absolutely sure you want to read his posts and that this will help you, not harm you, could this be it? Alex, thanks a lot for this. I'm still trying to gather the courage to read the whole thing. It hurts to know this happened to my brother. He was a good guy, would never hurt anybody. He sacrificed a lot of things for her and I really just can't believe this. Thanks to everyone who showed him kindness when he was far away from home. Commenter. I'm glad I could help. My brother was suicidal for a long time. I remember how tough it was. He fortunately got better after some time though, but every once in a while I have nightmares that he did go through it and just those nightmares mess me up pretty bad. I can't imagine what it's like to actually live through that horror. I'm really sorry for you and your family. I hope the posts can bring you all some closure. Please be real careful though. If I were in your shoes, I could very much see myself getting too hung up on the content of the posts and making my mental health significantly worse. This is why I very much recommend this is something you look at with a therapist if you do decide to open those posts up. Alex, it's really tough. Every day I was scared that something would trigger Connor to do it. I had to call him 3 times within a day to check up on him while I was at university and work. We've been having fun living together since the pandemic began. I thought he was enjoying spending a lot of time with me, but I think the isolation wasn't doing his mental health any good. I guess it's harder for me because I live with him. I'm glad to hear your brother is okay now. Alex, thanks a lot for your help, everyone. I haven't clicked on the post yet. I just need some time to collect myself. I'm pretty nervous, but my family and I've been in the dark for so long. We really need this closure. He never spoke about the situation again, and I wanted to see if he had any more to say. Commenter. I wouldn't get your hope too high for closure. I'm not sure that's entirely possible with a situation like this. These posts only represent a small snapshot during a short period of his life. His suicide is likely more complex than any one issue. Read it if you want, but please don't go into this hoping it will provide what you need to move on. Alex, I'm really thankful for the nice comments. Connor was a great man and he didn't deserve any of the pain life had thrown at him. My older brother, Kurt, and I will be reading the posts together tonight. I will be deleting the app straight away to give me some peace of mind. He also had a Reddit app in his phone with a different account. I really don't know what he was doing with many accounts, but I hope I have cleared it for some people. We will read most of the posts on that account tonight too. I know he was much more active on that one. I will not be telling my parents about this. They are already going through enough pain. Is it? No one should have to go through the bouts of burying their own kid. Much love, Alex. Now on to the next story. Story 7. I see my birth mom a lot and I keep meeting her. But she does not know I'm her child. She had me when she was 14, and I, 24M, was given up for adoption. My parents told me about her growing up. I still have the letter she wrote me that she asked if they could give it to me if they wanted. It's crazy reading it sometimes and knowing it was a literal child who wrote it, saying she's sorry she couldn't be my mommy but she hopes I'm happy. She was open to having contact, but we moved for my dad's job when I was 11, and then it seemed impossible to find her. But luckily I did. She's working at this small restaurant, and I keep going, but she doesn't know it's me. We talk sometimes, and she seems like a nice lady. Sometime when she says something like, "Do you want a refill, honey?" or uses another term like that, I want to tell her. I don't know, it makes me nervous. We talk sometimes, and she seems really genuine. If it's not super busy, she's more open to talking about random stuff. I literally drive 2 hours to come eat at this place just to see her, and it's like she knows me already because I'm there once or 2 times a week for the past 3 months. So she always says hi with a big smile, but man, if only she knew. Date 1. Well, I did it. I told her. And yeah, it was pretty heavy. My heart was even beating fast. I kept trying to think how to tell her. Many of the comments on my last post here mentioned writing her a letter, just how she wrote a letter for me originally. That was the plan, but for me, it felt like I needed to say it. Oh, really quick, I want to say thanks to everyone for their love and support, mostly to all the birth parents out there who shared their stories with me. That's what really helped push me to have the courage to confront her. It meant so much, so thanks. Everything happened day before yesterday, by the way. I did wait for her to be done with her shift, and that was when they were closing the restaurant already, and waited in the parking lot. We said hi when she saw me first, but then I told her there was something serious that she needed to know. First told her sorry for keeping it from her this long. She didn't react until I actually pulled out her letter, and she started bawling from there, like screaming and crying at the same time, and didn't even have to finish the whole "I'm your son" speech. She just saw it and knew. It was crazy. Next thing I know, she's hugging me instantly, but then she pulled back and asked if it's okay to hug me. Of course it is, and we're just there hugging and crying in the parking lot. It hit her hard though. Her legs gave out for a second, so I had to actually hold her up while she's still hugging me for a minute. What really got me was her saying to me, "Look how big you got." Also, hearing her cry made me cry too. She went back to open the restaurant up. She wouldn't take no for an answer. We had coffee, ate a slice of their pie inside, and talked so many stuff. We talked about her. She told me the second time I came to the restaurant she got a feeling, but for her it was hard to believe it was me, so that feeling she had was pushed way down. Because she told me for years after I was adopted she saw kids that would be my age and used to think they were me. Then she would be crying in public. It fucked with her mind a lot and made her depressed, so she didn't want to do the same when she saw me, getting her hopes up like that. She says I look so much like my biological dad when he was younger though. We talked about him too. They stayed in contact with each other in case I ever reached out to one of them, so it would be easier to contact the other. I didn't have hope about finding my biological dad since he was never mentioned, so I'm glad they both planned for this future scenario. She told me about how they wanted to keep me, especially my biological dad. He didn't want me to be adopted, but he knew they had to because they were just kids. It took him a long time to get past it after I was born. She told me that's why he didn't leave anything, because he didn't want to believe he might not see me again. We talked for hours till almost 2 o'clock in the morning. They closed at 11 o'clock. She just wanted to know everything about me, but her main thing was, am I happy? Were my parents good to me? Did I have a happy childhood? And I did. I told her thank you for helping to give me this life. We both cried again. She cried the most. Everything was very emotional for her. Sometimes she would look really happy but then get sad again. After my 18th birthday, she was hoping I would find her. That's why she stayed in the same city, but since I didn't, she always thought maybe I resented her, wasn't told I'm adopted, or maybe had decided it was better not to have her around. It made me feel bad for not telling her sooner. She told me it's not my fault and I did right going at my own pace. Honestly, she's so sweet. The way she kept looking at me with the biggest smile, it made me emotional sometimes. Makes you think, how can someone who's been a total stranger her whole life look at you with so much love? It's wild. We learned so much about each other. She asked me if we could have dinner soon to keep talking, and if at some point in the future, if I'm interested, come over to her house so I can meet her husband. That all sounded really great. We exchanged numbers. After I left, she sent a text telling me thank you for giving her this gift that she didn't know if it would ever come. My girlfriend came over, and she hugged me while I cried. I wasn't sad, by the way, these were happy tears. Everything went better than I expected. There was still emotionally heavy stuff, but I'm still glad that we got to open up to each other. Update 2. Met my biological dad for the first time ever, and I'm very happy about it. Update. Lots of you asked to let you know how it goes meeting my biological dad, and to say it was emotional is an understatement. I've been feeling so many things since this all happened. We met a few days ago. It was originally supposed to be almost 2 weeks ago, but stuff kept coming up. Work, and then I got sick, not COVID, for days, but we made it happen. TBH, this was more nervous for me because I didn't know anything about him. With my bio mom, it was different because I watched her from afar and got to know her a little before it came out. I asked my bio mom if she could be there too, just because she knows him better. So it was the two of us waiting for him at this park. He was already crying before we even got to him. This guy is strong too, so he pulled me in for the biggest bear hug and crying embarrassed smiley face. He told me he wants me to know that they loved me so much, and he loves me. I lost count how many times he'd come back in for one more hug. This definitely got to him, and he kept saying, "Thank you, God," a few times looking at my face. The feelings, man, the feelings. We had so many of them. Hearing him tell me how much they love me, even back then, it meant so much for me to hear that, and NGL that had me holding him tight too. I'm sure to everyone at the park it was weird seeing 3 crying people. LOL. My bio dad said he cried so many times just driving over here. He didn't think he had any more tears until he saw us. When we were all sitting down, it hit me that my bio mom was not lying when she said we look alike smiley face. Obviously, he's older, but still, holy crap, the similarities. He brought gifts too, which was a surprise. It was really nice. He told me I don't have to keep them if I don't want to, but he felt weird not coming with anything, and he's wanted to give this to me for a long time. One was a teddy bear holding a picture frame of him at the hospital holding me. He was 15 years old. It's still crazy to realize that. And then the other thing was a journal. The journal thing was stuff he said he started writing to me years after I was adopted. He was in therapy and that helped him to cope, thinking he would give them to me one day, his way of still feeling connected to me. I haven't read everything yet, but some of the pages were his thoughts and like he's talking to me. How he felt when they found out she was pregnant, then the adoption, everything going on in his mind when he first got to hold me as a baby. I didn't even know he was at the hospital too. It was not what I was expecting. It really got me. I read some more of what he wrote last night that really got me crying. I'm sad to think how much this affected them emotionally for years. Also think it's pretty sweet he wanted to write this for me. We talked about his own life, which was pretty hard, his struggles with home life and the feelings he had about giving me up. Then he wanted to know everything about me, basically with the same questions my bio mom had. I made sure they knew they made the right decision because my life was pretty great. He looked like he wanted to cry when he knew that because that's all they hoped for, and it was something he always wondered about for years. My bio mom left a bit after we were more comfortable so we could talk more in private, once it didn't feel too awkward between us. From there, he told me stories about how he met my bio mom. Sometimes he'd point out stuff he noticed about me that reminds him of her or me and him having similar likes. Example, I love eating mangoes. I can eat them all day, and that's what I bought when we bought snacks at the park. He told me my bio mom was obsessed with mangoes. Before she got pregnant, while pregnant, she craved it even more. Just cool info to know, even if it's random stuff, lol. It's still stuff we have in common, and we both have lots. Both like hiking, playing pool. He was a swimmer in college, and I was on a swim team in high school. Both love rock music, especially 90s. My bio dad was really open about sharing everything, like he really was getting ready for this meeting. He hoped it would happen, and he prayed every day to see me again because he had so many things he wanted to tell me. Overall, really good first meeting. I'm glad how it went. He's open to the idea of meeting my parents after I told them about all this, because they definitely want to meet my bio parents again if I'm comfortable with that, obviously if my bio parents are too. Let's see when that happens. I don't know how it's going to feel for me. They've met each other before I was even born, but I never had them at the same place, so that'll be interesting, lol. Me and my parents met up yesterday to have breakfast so I could tell them everything. My mom was so happy how it went. She actually cried too when I was telling them about both their reactions. My dad was proud because he knew how hard it was the months after finding my bio mom and not really wanting to make contact yet. I'm really happy to have their support because it's hard not to feel guilty about wanting to know more. My bio parents, they gave me a really good life, so for a while, it's felt like maybe to them I'm showing them that wasn't good enough for me and I'd rather have my bio parents. But they told me many times they want me to do this for me, and they know how much I love them, and I really do. Finding them and meeting them was hard, but it was so worth it to me, and seeing their reactions made it feel even more worth it. Still can't believe it sometimes. I'm just realizing this has turned into a long post. My bad. Haha. Writing this has been therapeutic, tbh, kind of thinking back to everything that's happened. Feeling really grateful again. Want to say thank you to everyone who has been on this journey with me. Everyone who sent me their own stories, their love, their encouragement. You guys have beautiful hearts, and I'm happy I had somewhere to talk about all this and receive so much love back. Just want to say to all the adopted kids out there, I wish you guys luck and that you find what you're looking for. It's not easy at all. I feel fortunate that things didn't go badly or that my bio parents aren't bad people. And to all the birth parents out there who made this sacrifice, it's because of you there are kids out there like me who got to have a great life with loving parents. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Sil screamed at me because I announced my pregnancy at a family dinner, because she previously had miscarriages. So, Mill insisted I get rid of my baby and tried to throw away my medications. I already know my mother-in-law is crazy, but I'm on Reddit today just to make sure I'm right due to the ongoing argument with my husband about her. So, this year I found out I was pregnant. It came as a complete surprise to both me and my husband because we weren't actively trying to conceive. Initially, we took some time to let the news sink in and to cherish the excitement privately. For about a month and a half we kept it to ourselves, discussing how and when to share the news with our families. Eventually, we decided that such a special moment deserved a special announcement, so we planned a grand luncheon at our home. We invited all our loved ones, eager to celebrate this new chapter of our lives together. The day of the gathering arrived, and our house was filled with warmth, chatter, and the smell of delicious food. After everyone had settled in, my husband and I decided it was the perfect time to share our news. With hearts pounding and smiles plastered on our faces, we stood up and announced, "We have some exciting news to share. We're pregnant." Hearing this, everyone's reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly joyful. My parents practically leapt out of their seats, their faces lighting up with pure happiness. They began congratulating us enthusiastically, their voices mingling with the other family members' well wishes and excitement. The room was buzzing with energy, and for a moment, it felt like everything was perfect. But then, I noticed something odd. My Sil and Mill weren't sharing in the joy like everyone else. Instead, they looked off. Sil's face was pale and her expression was tight, while Mill wore a similar look of disapproval. Before I could fully process it, Sil suddenly burst into tears, right there in front of everyone. At first, we all thought they were tears of joy. It seemed like the logical reaction to such happy news. But then, Sil turned toward me, her face red and filled with anguish, and shouted, "How could you do this to me?" Her words echoed in the room, leaving everyone stunned and silent. Without waiting for a response, she then turned on her heel and ran straight to the washroom. I looked around, trying to make sense of what had just happened, only to see Mill shaking her head at me and my husband. She looked at us, disappointed. Then, she followed her daughter toward the washroom, leaving us standing there, bewildered. Everyone was utterly stunned by the turn of events. My husband tried his best to calm the rest of the guests, who were now awkwardly murmuring among themselves and exchanging puzzled looks. Meanwhile, I decided to step away from the gathering to check on my Sil, hoping to understand what I had done to upset her so deeply. As I approached the washroom, I could hear raised voices inside. Sil and my mother-in-law were talking loudly, their words muffled by the door but unmistakably tense. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to approach the situation, but finally knocked gently on the door. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to sound calm and supportive, though I could feel my own anxiety rising. A moment later, the door was flung open, and Sil stood there, her face red and her eyes blazing with anger. She didn't look okay. She looked furious. Without giving me a chance to speak, she began to yell at me. "How dare you get pregnant just after what I have been through? How can you be this cruel to me?" That's when it finally hit me, and I understood the context of her outburst. You see, Sil had suffered her third miscarriage only a few months earlier. My heart had broken for her at the time, and my husband and I had done everything we could think of to support her. We had met with her and had made sure she knew we were there for her. But despite all our support, it was clear that her grief was still fresh, and the news of my pregnancy had hit a deeply painful nerve. However, my pregnancy hadn't been planned. It was a surprise to us too. There was no sense of competition or intent to hurt her on my part. If anything, I wished with all my heart that she hadn't experienced such devastating losses. But Sil continued to yell at me and accused me of being selfish and inconsiderate, insisting that my decision to announce my pregnancy at the luncheon was hurtful given her recent loss. Mill, standing right behind Sil like her backup, chimed in, saying that I should have had the decency to at least give Sil a heads up before the announcement, instead of rubbing it in her face and pushing her to react this way. Her tone was condescending and accusatory, as if I'd orchestrated the entire event to hurt Sil intentionally. I was taken aback by the audacity of her assumption. I took a deep breath and calmly responded, pointing out that it was never my intention to hurt Sil. I explained that I genuinely hadn't thought my pregnancy announcement would have such a deep impact on her. Also, why should I have given her a heads up? After all, Sil and I weren't particularly close. Yes, she was my husband's sister, and I'd always visited her out of courtesy when my husband wanted to see her. But beyond those familial obligations, there wasn't much of a personal relationship between us. The truth is, I'd always felt like an outsider when it came to Sil and Mill. Their treatment of me had been far from warm and welcoming. Both of them enjoyed bullying me, especially when they were together. In fact, right from the start, they had never liked me. I remember when I went bridal dress shopping with them before my wedding. I'd been so excited about that special day and had invited them along, hoping it would be a bonding experience. Instead, they spent the entire time tearing me down. No matter what dress I tried on, they'd find something negative to say. They made comments like, "Your arms look too fat," and "That dress makes your stomach look huge," as if their only goal was to shatter my confidence. It was baffling because I wasn't even out of shape. I worked out regularly, went to the gym 3 times a week, and had been an athlete back in college. I was healthy, fit, and happy with my body. But their remarks felt cruel, designed to make me second-guess myself. However, I didn't let their negativity sway me. I picked the dress I loved most, ignoring their jabs, and on my wedding day that decision paid off. I was showered with compliments about my dress from friends and family. I couldn't help but notice how small Mill and Sill's faces looked as they saw me thriving despite their efforts to undermine me. Throughout my marriage, Mill and Sill have continued to offend me here and there. Most of the time, I've chosen to ignore their behavior or let my husband handle it, preferring to keep the peace. However, this time was different. Their behavior went far beyond their usual antics. They were outright accusing me of wrongdoing over something I had no control over: my pregnancy announcement. No matter how much I tried to pacify Sill, she continued to berate me. Luckily, my husband and mother, noticing my prolonged absence, came to check on me. When my husband walked in and heard the tail end of Sill's accusations, he was furious. He firmly told her that she needed to stop accusing me just because I was pregnant and she is not. He yelled at her that she needed to stop thinking that the world revolved around her. Just because she had a miscarriage didn't mean that anyone else around her couldn't get pregnant or have children. His voice was calm but resolute, and it was clear he didn't like the way she blamed me. He went on to say to Sill that clearly she had lost her mind and was completely out of line for creating such a scene during what was supposed to be a joyous occasion for us. He asked her to leave our party and go back home so she could properly think things over, and asked his mom to leave with his sister and drive her home. Sill looked offended hearing this, and Mill tried to argue by showing support for her daughter, but my husband put his foot down. He threatened that if they didn't leave voluntarily, he would humiliate them in front of everyone by exposing their behavior. In the end, Mill and Sill had no choice but to leave. After the luncheon, my husband followed up with his family in private, determined to set boundaries. He made it clear to Mill and Sill that their behavior was unacceptable, and that if they didn't apologize to me for what they had said and done, he would cut them off entirely. Sill refused outright, doubling down on her stance and refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. She said she meant every word she said to me since she felt nothing but disdain for me and our baby. She accused my husband and me of knowingly getting pregnant so we could have the one thing she was struggling to have: a baby. Hearing this, my husband told her that if she really felt this way, then she would have no place in our lives ever again, and cut her off. On the other hand, Mill reluctantly agreed to meet with me to apologize, which I thought at the time was a good thing. So that same week, Mill and I met up. Her apology was awkward and hesitant, but she did express regret for how things had played out. She admitted that she didn't think I'd done anything wrong by getting pregnant and sharing the news the way I had. However, she explained that she felt compelled to defend Sill, given everything her daughter was going through. Her words felt more like an attempt to justify her behavior than a genuine apology, but I chose to forgive her with grace. Mill then began to ask me innocuous questions about how I felt about becoming a mother soon, if I truly liked the idea, and whether I was ready for the challenges ahead. She told me how being a mother was not all fun and games as parents make it believe, and that it was going to be very grueling. I listened politely and then smiled, replying honestly. "I know it won't be easy," I said. "I'm not expecting to be the perfect mother, especially not right away. This is my first child, and I'm sure there will be a lot of learning involved. But I'm lucky to have such a supportive partner in my husband. Together, we'll figure it out." But Mill just shook her head, almost pityingly, and said, "You can't depend on your husband for this. He's a man after all. You're the woman, and being a mother is your responsibility. You need to be ready to take on all the duties, or you'll end up overwhelmed. If you're not prepared to be a good mother, then maybe you should think twice before going through with this pregnancy. Her words left me stunned. Did she really just suggest what I thought she did? Was she seriously implying that I should reconsider having my child? The sheer insensitivity of her comment, combined with its audacity, hit me hard. I stared at her for a moment, trying to process what she'd said. Why would you even say something like that? Me and my husband are capable, responsible adults. We're financially stable, and we've already been talking about how to support each other through this journey. What makes you think I'm not ready or that I shouldn't go through with it? My voice was steady, but the disbelief was evident. Mill didn't flinch. Without missing a beat, she replied, "Just because you've been lucky enough to get pregnant and haven't lost the baby yet like Syl doesn't mean you'll be a good mother." She continued, claiming that she was only saying these things because she really cared about me and didn't want me to make a mistake by becoming a mother if I didn't want to become one. "It's nothing personal," she shrugged and added, as though her comments weren't deeply personal attacks on my character and readiness as a parent to my baby. I was so pissed at her at the moment that I looked her straight in the eye and said, "If you have the audacity to say something like that to me, then you can stay far, far away from me and my baby. I am not going to abort my child, and I'll make sure my husband knows exactly how his mother feels about our pregnancy." My voice was firm, fueled by anger and resolve, and I meant every word. Mill's reaction was immediate. Her eyes widened in shock, and she quickly began backtracking, stumbling over her words in an attempt to diffuse the tension. "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings," she said, her tone suddenly much softer. "I was just giving you some good advice, as a fellow mother." She apologized awkwardly and even tried to lighten the mood by joking, "If you're not capable enough to take care of the baby, I'll help out in any way I can." Her attempt at humor fell flat, and I wasn't amused. After that meeting, I made it a point to keep my distance from Mill as much as possible. I told my husband about what had happened, and while he agreed that his mother's comments were deeply insensitive, he didn't want to escalate the situation further at the time, since she did apologize to me and he wanted to think the best of her. Meanwhile, Syl continued to remain icy and refused to speak to either of us, which was fine by us. Then, while I was still a few months pregnant, Mill's basement flooded after a period of heavy rain, causing significant damage. She needed a place to stay temporarily while the repairs were being done. Unfortunately, Syl was out of town with her husband on a trip, leaving Mill without many options. The only choice she had was to stay with us. When my husband told me, I agreed, albeit reluctantly, to let her stay with us for a few days. It was the right thing to do, and I hoped that maybe this time things could remain civil. My husband promised me that I had his support and that he wouldn't let her cross any lines. Letting Mill stay with us turned out to be an even bigger mistake than I had anticipated. During her stay, she interfered with everything around the house. She wanted to have a say in every little detail of my life, from how I cooked to when I did my laundry every week. But the most frustrating part was her involvement in planning the nursery. I had carefully chosen a soft pastel yellow wallpaper for the nursery. I wanted to create a calm and welcoming atmosphere, perfect for a little one's room. But Mill had other ideas. She insisted that I should change it to beige because, according to her, it would be more stylish and easier on the eyes than yellow. When I refused, she tried to talk to my husband behind my back to convince him to change my mind. Luckily, my husband simply ignored her and firmly asked her to not involve him in such matters. He told her that he trusted me to choose whatever color I felt like. However, when I found out about how Mill had gone behind my back to complain to my husband about something so trivial, I couldn't hold back. I confronted her just to remind her, in case she forgot, that this was my baby's nursery and it was my decision how it should look, since I was the mother and not her. It was as though she was back to her old self, trying to take control of every little decision as if my choice for my baby's nursery didn't matter. I had to put my foot down. Mill seemed taken aback by my response and looked visibly pissed off about what I said to her. But after that, at least she kept her mouth shut. Next, I was taking doctor-prescribed medications to support my pregnancy as per my doctor's advice. When Mill noticed this, she immediately became nosy and began bombarding me with intrusive questions about what the medications were for and why I needed them. She then launched into a speech about how back in her day, women never took such medications during pregnancy and still managed to have healthy babies. She implied that I was overreacting or overly reliant on modern medicine, even questioning my judgment for following my doctor's orders. Mill smugly insisted that I should stop taking the medications altogether because, according to her, she knew better than any doctor. I was beyond irritated but decided to ignore her comments, assuming she would eventually drop the subject. Surely, I thought, she couldn't actually believe she knew better than a medical professional. But I was wrong. Just a day later, I discovered that all my medications were missing. I kept them in a specific drawer in our bedroom for easy access, but they were nowhere to be found. I searched the entire house, checking and rechecking every possible spot, but they were gone. Frustrated and worried, I told my husband about the missing medications and shared my suspicion that Mill might have taken them. At first, he was hesitant to believe his mother could do something so extreme. However, when he confronted her about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She admitted to throwing my medications in the trash. My husband went to check, and sure enough, he found the discarded bottles, confirming her outrageous actions. Mill defended herself by claiming that she had done it for my own good. She insisted that the medications might be dangerous for my body and that I should be strong enough to go through the pregnancy without any help. Her reasoning was infuriatingly ignorant, and the sheer audacity of her interference left both my husband and me livid. It wasn't just that she had taken my medications without permission. It was the fact that she thought she had the right to make such decisions for me, as if she was the authority over my pregnancy instead of me or my doctor. My husband tried to rationally explain to Mill that these medications were a common part of pregnancy care and that a lot of pregnant women take them. Generally, these medicines would ultimately benefit the baby. He hoped to make her understand that there was no shame in taking them and that they were prescribed by a qualified doctor according to my health to ensure the best possible outcomes for our child. But Mill just brushed him off, her tone dismissive as she proclaimed, "I know better than you too." She even said how I was going to be a terrible mother if I didn't learn to take her advice, as she had been a mother before me. That was the final straw. My husband and I immediately told Mill to pack her things and leave our house that very day. As she scrambled to explain herself, we made it crystal clear that her behavior was completely unacceptable. My husband told her in no uncertain terms that we were done with her toxic antics. Her reckless actions had crossed every boundary, and we would no longer tolerate her in our lives. We informed her that she was not going to be a part of our child's life. Ever. Mill broke down in tears, begging us to forgive her and trying to backtrack, claiming she hadn't meant any real harm. But we no longer had any room left for her manipulative behavior in our home, in our lives, or around our future child. Ever. Ever since then, Mill was out of our lives and I was finally happy. Recently, I gave birth to my baby and I have absolutely been loving being a first-time mom. My husband and I have both taken leaves from our work so we can be at home and help each other out. Yesterday, Mill showed up at our doorstep unannounced after almost 4 months of silence. We thought we had gotten rid of her since we wanted nothing to do with her. Yet here she was, standing on our doorstep, insisting she wanted to talk. My husband and I exchanged hesitant glances, but after a moment, he reluctantly opened the door to let her in. He figured it would be better to hear her out and address whatever she had to say than to leave things unresolved. As we sat down, Mill began by saying how she had come to realize her mistakes after being cut off from us for all these months. I admitted that I had acted out of loyalty to Syl, allowing my emotions and Syl's pain to cloud my judgment. When I saw how your pregnancy affected my daughter, I just wanted to protect her, she confessed to me. And I guess in my anger, I wanted to hurt you back. I am sorry for throwing away your medications and for interfering in any other decisions. I wasn't thinking clearly at the time. Then Mill continued to say how her continuing to support Syl's behavior was useless, since there was no guarantee that she would ever become a mother. She insisted that now that she had apologized to us, we needed to forgive her immediately so she could finally have this one final opportunity to be a grandma to our son. My husband could see from my face that I was not happy or convinced, so he told her that we needed some time to think, and then she left. Ever since this conversation, My husband has been insisting that we should give his mother another chance. But I'm just not ready. Update 1. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up so fast. I hope my Sil or Mill are not on Reddit. I agree with everyone's comment that my mother-in-law clearly cannot be trusted. There's no way she has suddenly changed. I'm certain she still resents me, and if I let her in now, she will likely try to harm me in some way later. As for my husband, please don't criticize him. He has always stood up for me. I think he's feeling differently now because he's just become a father and wants our baby to meet his mother. I plan to talk to him about this. As for my sister-in-law, she hasn't been in contact with us. She still dislikes me, especially because I became a mother before her. She goes around telling people that it should have been her and that she should have had the first grandchild in the family, not me. Update 2. This week, I decided to sit down and have a proper talk with my husband. I wanted to share my feelings and make sure he understood why I was so hesitant about allowing his mother back into our lives, especially after all the hurt she had caused. I started by telling him about the countless things that Sil and Mill had said about me over the months and how it had made me feel. I reminded him of how his sister, who hadn't apologized once since that painful day, had continued to distance herself from us just because I was pregnant and she wasn't. It was hard for me to grasp how someone could be so consumed by jealousy and hurt yet completely unwilling to make amends or check in on us. I also reminded my husband about all the times Mill had tried to undermine me, from criticizing my pregnancy to suggesting I give up on it entirely. I had felt completely unsupported by her throughout my pregnancy, and instead of feeling like a part of the family, I felt attacked and isolated. Every time she belittled my choices or tried to convince me I was doing things wrong, I had to swallow my frustration and push forward. After everything they'd done and said, I asked him, "Why should I trust your mother now? Even though she is apologizing, she's done so much damage and has shown me nothing but disrespect. I'm just not sure I can let go of all the hurt they've caused." I could see my husband processing everything I said. He agreed that despite his mother's apology, we couldn't simply move past all of her actions as though it never happened. Trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight, and we needed to protect our family from further harm. In the end, my husband has agreed to meet with his mother privately and talk to her about this decision. He could have addressed her in front of me, but I didn't want to risk her making another scene and taking out all her anger on me, especially with everything that had already transpired. I feel a bit relieved knowing that my husband has my back. He understands where I'm coming from and he is taking the lead in setting boundaries with his mother. Update 3. It's been a while since I updated anything here, but since people have been asking me in my DMs about what exactly happened between my husband and Mill, here it goes. When my husband told Mill that we couldn't let her back into our lives and that we didn't want her to meet our baby, her reaction was nothing short of explosive. According to him, she immediately began blaming me for everything, shouting that he wasn't man enough to stand up to me and that I was the one who had somehow turned him against her and his sister. She insisted that she didn't care about my feelings, but that he needed to fight for her to be involved in our baby's life because, after all, she was the grandmother and our baby needed to know her. My husband assured her that our baby already had a grandmother, my mom, and that our child would be just fine without ever knowing Mill. But this only seemed to push Mill further over the edge. She lashed out, attacking my husband's character, calling him a terrible father, and even going so far as to say that she wished our baby had died and that Sil's baby had been born instead because then at least Sil would have let her be in the baby's life. My husband told me later that he was so appalled by his mother's reaction that he had to leave quickly before he lost his temper with her. He knew it wasn't worth getting dragged into a toxic argument with his mother, but I could see the toll it had taken on him. The words she said were not just harsh, they were unforgivable. To wish harm on our child, to wish that our baby hadn't made it, was a level of disgusting cruelty I just couldn't fathom. While I'm relieved that we are standing firm in our decision and protecting our family from her toxic behavior, it breaks my heart that Mill could hurt my husband like that. He's a good man, and he didn't deserve to be treated that way. No child should ever have to endure a parent who would go that far, no matter the situation. The pain that Mill inflicted on my husband is something that will take a long time to heal, and I just wish she could see the damage she's done, not just to me, but to her own son. Update 4. Hello everyone, I have an update. Sil reached out to us. Turns out, after this post went viral, someone may have recognized my story and shared the link with my sister-in-law, and she reached out to my husband to complain about me. According to her, I had no right to air our private family issues online. She also feels I didn't provide the full story and that people in the comments have bashed her and my mother-in-law without the proper context. She is trying to justify her behavior towards me by insisting that because she was going through a tough time, she deserved more sympathy. My husband did go through my post after she sent him the link. He literally laughed and agreed with the comments bashing on her. He told his sister that he didn't find any issues with what I had shared because I had simply written the truth. He also suggested to Sil that instead of arguing with him, she should take a good hard look at herself and realize just how toxic she really is. As for Mill, fortunately, she hasn't reached out to us at all. We did install several web cameras around the house after everyone's recommendations, just for our protection. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Set up a surprise birthday party for my husband, but he arrived with his work wife, openly acknowledged their affair, and called our marriage a mistake in front of everybody. For as long as I can remember, my husband has always expressed to me how meaningful turning 40 would be for him. His father passed away at the young age of 39, so he had just this one particular wish, to live longer than his father did. So, when his 40th birthday was approaching, I started thinking about how special it would be to organize a surprise party for him. It felt like the perfect moment to mark the occasion in a big, joyful way. I wanted to plan a celebration where he could be surrounded by the people who loved him the most, his closest family and friends. So I went all out during the planning process. I wanted everything to be perfect, from the guest list to the decorations, and I even extended a special invitation to my mother-in-law, Cheryl. Cheryl and I have always had a close relationship, and I knew how much it would mean to my husband to have his mom there for this occasion. She lives out of town, so I made sure to book a flight for her to arrive on the day of the party. Everything was coming together, and I couldn't wait to see the look on my husband's face when he walked into a room filled with the people who cared about him the most. On the night of my husband's birthday party, everything was in place. The decorations were perfect, the guests were quietly waiting, the house was dark, and we all stood silently, our excitement barely contained as we waited for him to come back home. Earlier that day, I had set the stage without giving anything away. Over breakfast, I had casually mentioned to him that I would be at my parents' house that evening, hoping to keep his expectations low. My goal was for him to think I wasn't planning anything special for his birthday. I imagined how amazed he would be when he walked through the door and discovered the actual surprise waiting for him. When I heard my husband's car pull into the driveway, my heart started racing. I was practically tingling with anticipation. We all stayed perfectly still, listening to the sounds of him outside. His footsteps, the faint jingle of his keys as he fumbled to unlock the door. I giggled to myself, picturing him trying key after key in the dark, probably muttering to himself in frustration. Then, finally, the door swung open. We all jumped up at once, shouting, "Surprise! Happy birthday!" as the lights flickered on. But instead of the joyful expression I had been eagerly awaiting, there, standing in the doorway, was my husband, Jackson. His tie loosened, arms wrapped around his coworker, April, in the middle of a kiss. Everyone around us fell silent, and the room, which had been so full of happiness just seconds before, was now thick with shock and disbelief. People gasped in horror, staring at Jackson and April. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. For some context, my husband and April are coworkers. They have been working together for quite a while. She's younger than both of us and is one of his subordinates at work. Over the years, I've seen her at the annual office Christmas parties when Jackson would bring me along. I've observed how she interacts with people, especially with him. At times, she'd come off a bit flirtatious and would even call herself as his work wife jokingly. But I had never taken it seriously. I would brush it off, mostly because she seemed to behave that way with almost all the older men at the office. I thought this was just part of her personality and never really let her behavior bother me because I trusted my husband and didn't see her as a serious threat. But now, standing in the doorway, seeing Jackson kissing her, it was humiliating in a way I had never imagined. I felt a rush of emotions. When my husband realized that we were all there and staring at him, he finally stopped. His eyes were unfocused, and he seemed drunk, stumbling a bit. He looked around at the people gathered for his surprise party and simply said, "Oops," before bursting into laughter again. Meanwhile, April stood beside him awkwardly, fixing her shirt, her lipstick almost wiped clean because of their kiss. The room was silent, and all I could feel was the crushing weight of the embarrassment and hurt, with all eyes on me, waiting for how I'd respond. Cheryl, my mother-in-law, was the first to break the silence. She stood up and demanded loudly, "Jackson, what the hell are you doing?" Jackson's eyes widened as he did not expect to see his mom here, and he slowly turned his head toward her. He tried to explain in his hazy state, "I didn't expect everyone to be here." He trailed off and looked a little embarrassed now. My heart raced as I confronted him directly, asking why he was with April in our house, kissing her, when I had organized the surprise party to celebrate his birthday. I had to know the answer, even though I was terrified of what he might say next. Jackson sighed and just shook his head. He glanced around the room before clearing his throat. In a casual tone, as if making a work announcement, he said he had planned to break the news another day. Then, with a sneer, he added that since the surprise party had exposed him in April, he might as well reveal the truth now. "April and I are together. We've been dating for a few months now," and he paused, glancing at her as if for confirmation, before looking back at me. "And I'm falling in love with her." I stood there utterly stunned. What was my husband even talking about? My hands were trembling, my heart pounding in my chest as the weight of his words settled in the air. He didn't just stop, though, as he continued, saying how he had tried to hold off his feelings for April for months. But this year he had realized that he needed to finally start living life on his own terms. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The words felt surreal, like they were coming from someone else, not the man I had spent years building a life with. He then went on this rant, talking about how his father had died young, never getting the chance to fulfill his dreams. "I don't want to end up like him," he said, his tone almost defiant. "I need to do what makes me happy before it's too late for me." My mouth hung open in disbelief, and I could feel the tears starting to well up in my eyes. It was like he was casting me aside, as if our history didn't even matter. In the heat of the moment, something inside me snapped. I felt furious and betrayed. I grabbed the birthday cake, the same cake I had spent time and care picking out for him, and without thinking, I hurled it at his face. The cake smashed all over his clothes. At first, everyone just gasped in shock, but then some began laughing at his face. Our guests could see just how rude my husband was to humiliate me this way, and I guess they wanted to show their support. Jackson was understandably furious as he wiped his face. His voice, thick with anger, echoed through the room as he screamed at me, "Look what you've done! You've dirted my shirt." It was almost laughable how trivial his complaint was given the gravity of the situation. Here he was, fixated on the state of his shirt as though that was the most pressing issue, not the fact that he had just humiliated me in front of everyone we knew, openly flaunting his betrayal. Without sparing me another glance, Jackson stormed off upstairs to probably change, while April stood there unashamedly, looking at everyone. As soon as Jackson was out of sight, I took the opportunity to glare at her. I then marched over to her, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her outside. Her shrill protests filled the air, accusing me of manhandling her, but not a single guest came to her aid. No one moved, no one even batted an eye. Even Cheryl was furiously shouting at April for having the sheer audacity to try to sleep with Jackson under my own roof, at our party, in front of our friends. Once outside, I spun her around and let out the words I had been holding in like venom on my tongue. "I just can't believe you. You slept with my husband after all the times you've seen me at this party. After you've seen us together for so many years. The disbelief, the hurt, it all came pouring out." But April wasn't fazed. She wasn't even ashamed. She just scoffed, her lips curling into a smug, defiant smirk, as if I were the one in the wrong. With disdain in her voice, she declared that Jackson wanted her and that I had no right to stand between them, adding that he was going to leave me one day anyways. Her words felt like knives slicing through as she continued by saying that instead of placing blame on her, maybe I should reflect on why I had failed as a wife, suggesting that my inability to keep him satisfied was the reason he had turned to her. Every word she said pushed me closer to the edge. My mind could barely process the nerve of this woman. She taunted me further. He told me how you don't understand him the way I do. You don't make him smile the way I do. That's why he's leaving you. He deserves someone better than you. Hearing those words, something in me snapped. I didn't even think. My vision blurred, and the next thing I knew, my hand flew through the air and connected with her face in a resounding slap. It was one thing for Jackson to say those hurtful things to me, but it was an entirely different kind of betrayal for this woman, April, to throw them back in my face. She started to cry, clutching her face where I had slapped her, her cheek now an angry shade of red, burning from the impact. Through her tears, she screamed a stream of profanities at me, her voice shrill and shaking with anger. Before I could even respond, Cheryl stepped in, her voice loud and unyielding as she confronted April. "If you don't leave this property right now, you'll be getting a slap from me too," Cheryl threatened, her words sharp with disgust. April, still fuming, stared back, but she didn't dare move toward Cheryl. By now, the other guests had trickled outside, drawn by the chaos unfolding in our front yard. They stood around, watching the scene unfold in stunned silence, some whispering amongst themselves, others too shocked to even speak. It was a spectacle none of them had expected when they arrived at our party, and I could feel their judgmental eyes flickering between me and April. And then, as if on cue, Jackson reappeared. He walked out with a freshly changed shirt, looking disturbingly composed given everything that had just happened. A bag was slung over his shoulder, and it took me a moment to process that he had packed a few of his things. When he saw April clutching her cheek, tears streaming down her face, he rushed to her side, putting his arm around her protectively, as if she were the victim in all of this. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he yelled at me, his voice full of anger and disappointment. He looked at me like I was the one who had crossed a line, as if I was the one who had done something unforgivable. In his eyes, I was the villain at this moment for slapping the woman who had slept with him. Then he spat out words that broke me all over again. "I can't deal with this any longer. I am done," he shouted. "I want you out of the house when I come back from our trip. I hope to never see your face again." A trip? He was leaving me, breaking our marriage apart, and already planning a weekend getaway with her. I stood there, frozen in disbelief and pain, watching as he took April to his car, and then both of them drove away without a second thought. I felt a deep, aching emptiness as I watched the tail lights of his car disappear down the street. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. Cheryl looked as devastated as I felt. Everyone had just witnessed the end of my marriage in real time, and I felt so embarrassed. Cheryl, bless her, stepped up and took control of the situation immediately. She politely asked everyone to leave, thanking them for coming and apologizing for what had happened. People did come up to me to give me awkward hugs and offered me a few words of comfort before walking out, while I just felt completely numb, still trying to process what had just happened. After everyone had left, Cheryl guided me to sit down. She handed me a glass of water, and even though my hands were trembling, I barely noticed. Once I knew it was her and me, I started to cry, big, uncontrollable sobs. I had held it in for too long. I didn't want to cry in front of everyone, but now that I was alone with her, it all came out. The shock, the humiliation, the sheer disbelief at what had just happened. My husband had destroyed our marriage at his own surprise birthday party, in front of his friends and family, all while kissing his coworker, and then he had the audacity to even kick me out. Through my tears, I confided in Cheryl that I was completely lost. I had no idea what to do, where to go, or how to rebuild my life. I had invested so many years into this marriage, caring for my husband through his illnesses, cooking, cleaning, and even giving up my career because he always wanted a stay-at-home wife. And now he had ripped the rug out from under me and was leaving me with nothing. I was lost physically and emotionally. I couldn't imagine packing up my life and leaving the home we had shared for years. Hearing this, Cheryl shook her head firmly and then reminded me of something that I had apparently forgotten. You see, the house Jackson and I had lived in wasn't truly ours. It belonged to Cheryl's late husband, a home filled with memories that she had cherished. After his passing, she graciously allowed Jackson and me to live here so we could start a family and build our life together. At the time, it felt like a gift, a fresh start for us in a place filled with love and support. But now, everything about that life had shattered, and the weight of what Jackson had done was more than just a betrayal. It was a violation of the very trust Cheryl had placed in us. After what my son did to you, I'm embarrassed to have raised such a monster, she told me. Her voice was thick with sorrow, the kind only a mother could feel when she realized her own child has become someone she barely recognizes. She wrapped her arms around me in a hug that felt like both comfort and a promise. She then looked me straight in the eyes and said, "This is my house and I decide who lives here and I'm choosing you." Her words were a lifeline, offering me a sense of control in a situation that felt wildly out of my hands. She continued to say how she wasn't going to let Jackson and April get away with what they had done. She wanted to teach Jackson a lesson, to show him that his actions had real, painful consequences. She continued with a firm voice, stating that he needed to be reminded that destroying a marriage and walking away would not happen without paying the price. Then she added something that made me smile even in the midst of all the chaos. "There's no way I'm letting April Sconia move in here with my son. She's not ruining my family home." Cheryl's protectiveness over me was something I hadn't expected, since I thought she would eventually support her son. But here she was, instead, looking out for me. Jackson might have thought he could walk out of our marriage and into another woman's arms, but Cheryl and I were about to show him that life wouldn't be that easy. I admit, hearing Cheryl's words had given me a sense of relief, and it was like a weight had been lifted, knowing I wasn't going to be cast out of the house I'd called home. Cheryl's backing gave me the strength I needed to take control of the situation. So, long story short, over the weekend, I signed a proper rental agreement with her, making everything official. I wanted evidence, something concrete that would prevent Jackson from ever kicking me out. With the agreement in place, I knew I had solid ground to stand on. That same weekend, I methodically packed all of Jackson's things. It was oddly therapeutic, boxing up the remnants of the life we had shared. I piled them neatly on the porch outside, where he could easily collect them when he returned from his trip. It wasn't until a week later that I finally noticed his car pull into the driveway. By that time, I had already made all the preparations. I'd installed security cameras outside the house because I knew what was coming. I needed the cameras for my own protection, just in case things went sideways. I had also changed the locks. There was no way I was letting him barge in here and disrupt my life again. Sure enough, when he tried his key in the door, nothing happened. He fumbled with the lock for a moment before realizing he was locked out. His face twisted in frustration, and soon enough, he started banging on the door, his fists thudding against the wood like a relentless drum. "Open the door!" he yelled, his voice thick with frustration. I watched him through the camera, feeling oddly calm. I wasn't about to let him back in, not after everything that had happened. So, instead of opening the door, I spoke to him through the intercom, my voice as casual as I could make it. "What are you doing here, Jackson?" I asked, sounding almost bored. His response was instant and furious. He began yelling, accusing me of overstaying and that he had given me plenty of time already to pack my things and leave, insisting that I should have gone by now. His voice was laced with contempt as he ranted about how tired he was of me, how he couldn't stand my so-called neediness and desperation anymore by continuing to stay here when he had clearly ended our marriage in front of everyone. He didn't want to deal with me, he said. He just wanted the divorce and for me to disappear from his life. His eyes then fell on the boxes packed outside, and he became silent. I guess he must not have realized earlier that those were his things outside. He glared at the boxes, then back at the door, shaking his head as if this was all some ridiculous joke. But it wasn't, and he knew it. "You think you can throw out my things like this? You think you're going to get away with this?" He stomped up to the door again, banging on it with renewed aggression, his fist slamming against the wood. "You have no right to do this. I'll take you to court if I have to." he shouted, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "You hear me? I'll sue you for this. You can't just throw me out of my own house." I let him carry on, watching through the camera as he vented, pacing angrily back and forth on the porch. It was almost amusing how he still thought he was in control of the situation. I leaned closer to the intercom, my voice cool and collected as I explained that this was not his house, but his mom's. I had signed a rental agreement with Cheryl, making the house legally mine to live in now, and pointed out that he was the one trespassing. After a brief pause to give him time to comprehend my words, I continued to state that if he wanted to take the matter to court, he was welcome to try, but I didn't believe he would have much of a case. I demanded that he take his things and leave immediately, or I would call the police. I watched Jackson through the camera, his confusion etched across his face, as if he couldn't quite wrap his head around what was happening. It was almost pitiful, really, the way he stood there, frozen for a moment. But then, just as quickly as the confusion appeared, it was replaced by fury. He screamed at the door, and then, in a flurry of movement, yanked out his phone. I had no doubt he was calling his mother, probably hoping she'd swoop in to defend him, to undo the situation. But I knew Cheryl had no intention of doing that. I was certain she'd tell him exactly what I had. This wasn't his house anymore, and he needed to accept the consequences of his actions. As I watched him pace furiously on the porch, kicking over boxes and cursing under his breath, it was clear that whatever conversation he had with Cheryl wasn't going in his favor. His frustration boiled over as he stomped around and kicked over one of the boxes I had so carefully packed, sending his things spilling across the porch, and I could hear him shouting profanities at the door. His voice echoed through the intercom as he called me a thief, accusing me of stealing his house. "I'm going to make you pay for this," he kept repeating. I could have responded to his insults, but I didn't see the point. I knew he couldn't do anything, not really. He could try to drag this through the courts if he wanted, but we both knew he didn't have a leg to stand on. I had done everything by the book, and there was no way he could claim I had wronged him when he had been the one to break our marriage vows, to betray me in the worst way possible. After what felt like an hour of him raging outside, the fight finally drained out of him. He looked defeated. His shoulders slumped as the realization sunk in that there was no winning this. With no other choice, Jackson began to finally move his boxes into his car. I watched as he shoved the last of his things into the trunk, slammed it shut, and then drove away. Since that day, I've received multiple voicemails from both Jackson and April. They've bombarded me with messages, each one more bitter than the last. April in particular seems to relish in calling me a witch for managing to kick Jackson out of the house. She keeps talking about how they both had wanted to start afresh in this home and that I had stolen that dream from them. Jackson, it turns out, has been living in a motel now, and according to their messages, he is miserable. Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband out of the house after what he did to me? Date 1. To clarify, the reason Jackson isn't living with April currently is because she shares a place with 2 other roommates, and their landlord is strict about the rules. Apparently, she isn't allowed to let Jackson move in, which is hilarious. If they're truly that committed to each other, then I think April should break her rental agreement and find a place where the 2 of them can play house. But honestly, they can do whatever they want now. It's no longer my problem. What is my focus now is making sure that Jackson pays for what he did in more ways than one. I've already filed for divorce, and I'm prepared to fight tooth and nail to make sure he pays a hefty alimony. He may have thought he could walk out of this marriage without consequences, but he's about to learn that actions have repercussions, especially when you betray someone who's been nothing but loyal to you. He wants a life with April. That's fine, but he's going to help me rebuild the life he destroyed, whether he likes it or not. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update. I took all your suggestions into account and finally sent an email to Jackson's company about his ongoing affair with April. I knew that airing our dirty laundry wouldn't change the betrayal he'd inflicted on me, but I felt it was necessary for the sake of his other subordinates. In my email, I detailed everything Jackson had confessed to me about their affair, laying bare the fact that it had been going on for months. I recounted specific incidents that I had witnessed, including April's flirtatious behavior with older men at various office parties. I wanted to paint a clear picture of their relationship, not just as a personal betrayal, but as a continued violation of workplace ethics. To my surprise, after a week of silence, I started hearing from some of Jackson's coworkers, who had also become my friends over the years, that the HR department had launched a full investigation into the matter. I hadn't expected the company to take my email seriously, but it seemed word had gotten around about his favoritism toward April over other employees. He had been giving her preferential treatment for a long time, which had always raised eyebrows and led to murmurs of discontent within the office. So, the combination of my detailed account and the complaints from other employees forced the company to investigate. Jackson's affair was no longer a private matter. It had crossed into professional territory, and that changed everything. Days later, I learned from my friends that Jackson had been fired as a result of the investigation. I could hardly contain my satisfaction at the thought of him being let go, stripped of the privileges he had taken for granted while engaging in this affair. As for April, I am not sure if she will face the same fate. There are whispers among my friends that HR is still looking into her role in the situation, but I haven't heard any definitive news. Part of me hopes she faces consequences too, but I also realize that it is ultimately out of my hands now. For anyone who's worried about my alimony situation and whether I'd be entitled to anything once Jackson gets fired, rest assured, I'm in a good position. Over the years, Jackson has earned a substantial income, and I've realized he hardly ever spent any of it on us. We never went on vacations, had very few date nights, and he rarely bought me anything. Looking back, it's clear that the red flags were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Anyway, my focus is solely on finalizing the divorce. I'm committed to making sure I get what I deserve. I've been through too much to settle for anything less than what's fair. With Jackson's job loss and everything else that's unfolded, I feel like I'm on the brink of a fresh start. I'm ready to move forward. Update 3. It's been 7 months since my last update. Sorry for my late update, but I have been divorced from my ex for some time now and have started dating again. Jackson held a grudge against me throughout the divorce proceedings for the way I allegedly cost him his job, but there was nothing he could do about it. Multiple witnesses had seen him kiss April during his surprise party and had heard him confess about his affair. In the end, I didn't receive a massive settlement during the alimony negotiations, but I did get more than enough to start rebuilding my life. The first thing I did after my divorce was go on a solo vacation by myself and lounge on the beach all day, sipping cocktails. I am currently working part-time at my friend's boutique and plan on applying for full-time jobs in the future. Cheryl and I have continued to be in each other's life. She has been a solid rock for me throughout this ordeal. Her kindness and understanding have given me the right space to heal. As for Jackson and April, they are still dating. Apparently, April was never fired from the company, but I've heard that her coworkers no longer trust her. Most of them seem to have distanced themselves from her as they don't want to be associated with someone who has been at the center of such a huge company scandal. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Parents kicked me out at 19, but now my fiancé wanted to invite my estranged parents to our wedding. My dad left the family and went no contact when I, 35M, was 4. My mom remarried and had 2 kids with my stepdad. My stepdad never treated me poorly, but always made clear that I was Dale, fake name, to him. He was not my dad. My mom never tried to fix the relationship and honestly loved her new family and always saw me as a burden. That's what I thought, at least until it was confirmed after my freshman year of college when my mom asked me not to come home anymore. I blocked her after that phone call and have had no contact with her or my stepdad and half-brother since then. I do still speak to my half-sister, 25F, at her insistence, but that's my only contact. Took me a long time to deal with basically being kicked out of my family. I grew to be pretty independent and thought I'd live alone until I met my fiancé, 28F, 4 years ago. We have had a great relationship, and her family opened up and invited me in with open arms. She comes from a pretty typical suburban family, and they are great. Over the years, I've told her about my issues with my family. She has met my sister, and she never pushed for more until we started planning the wedding. When we started talking about who we would invite, I talked about friends from college and coworkers, and she kept saying I should invite my parents. At first, I thought she was just trying to gauge if I wanted to. I said I would not be inviting my parents. She said, okay, but then brought it up again the next day. I calmly explained how much they hurt me, how growing up feeling you were unwanted and then having it confirmed at 19 really stunted my mental health. That over the years I've realized it's their problem, and if they ever want to solve it, then they can initiate. But I am in contact with my sister, and it is clear they are happy insisting I don't exist. Sucks, but it's their problem that they have thrust onto me. I can't be the one to solve it. I thought it had ended, but she has brought it up 2 more times. The last one was last night. We were about to start the save the dates, and she said, "Are you sure you don't want to invite your parents? I feel like I might just invite them on my side." And I snapped. I told her we should probably just throw the invitations away because if you can't respect what I've been through, then I don't want to marry you. I then went to our bedroom and fumed for a while. She came in to try to talk to me, and I walked out, grabbed my keys and left. I came back around 11 p.m. after hanging with friends and slept on the couch. She left for work without a word to me, and I don't know where we stand. Her behavior is unacceptable, but I feel I may have gone too far. What do you all think? Edit. Now, some people might think that my parents and Dale are secretly trying to reconcile or that they might eventually come around, but I honestly doubt it. I meet up with my sister every Thursday night, and we talk about everything. If there was even the slightest chance that my mom and Dale were interested in patching things up, my sister would have given me some kind of hint by now, but she hasn't. The truth is, they're perfectly content pretending that I don't exist, and I've come to terms with that. It's not something that started overnight, and it's not going to change anytime soon. Update 1. August 7th, 2024. I'm very overwhelmed by the response. So many thoughtful responses. Thank you to everyone who took the time to respond. I thought I would give an update. My fiancé normally gets home around 5:30 p.m., so after I was done working, I worked from home. I waited for her to show up. Got very worried when it was 6 o'clock and she still wasn't home. But around 6:15, she shows up with my sister, which was a big surprise. While my sister and I connect every Thursday, we live 45 minutes away from each other, so her popping by is not normal. Both of them looked very anxious, so I was very confused. I asked them what was going on, and my sister just bursts into tears, saying she's sorry. After like 5 minutes of her losing it, she starts talking about the family. So apparently, when she told my mom and Dale that I got engaged, it started a rift between them. Not because they cared about me, but about how my half-brother, who is 27, is still living at home, single, with no steady job. If you're thinking, why they kicked you out at 19, but let him stay there past when he could rent a car? Don't worry, I said it out loud. My mom apparently wants to do the same to my half-brother, but Dale won't let her. So they are currently separated, with my mom leaving family and refusing to come back until my half-brother is out of the house. For some reason that defies all logic and reason, my sister thinks getting an invite to my wedding will bring the family together, since it was my engagement that caused the rift. At this, I blew up a bit. I told her that my engagement had nothing to do with it, that their shitty parenting and poor relationship skills caused it, and don't put that on me. She cried even harder, and this time I was not going to console her. My fiancé is just sitting there the whole time, so while my sister is trying to get herself together, I question my fiancé about this. She also teared up a bit, but tells me my sister was telling her about how I always bring up the family on our Thursdays and that deep down I wanted to repair the relationship. I asked how she could believe that when I was very clear that I was no contact with my family and had never mentioned wanting to be in contact. I told her that I tell her everything and would never hold back something like this without talking to her. She's always been my sounding board. When I switched jobs last year, we talked about it every night, and her advice mattered more than anyone else. She apologized and then wanted to show me her phone, specifically the messages between her and my sister. At this point, my sister perks up and asks her not to show the phone conversation, but my fiancé tells her she's trying to save her relationship. My sister has just been straight up lying about our Thursday conversations, saying how I was always talking about reconciling, how I would never admit it but I'm partially at fault too, how I really want to see them all again. Every time I would tell my fiancé no, she would text my sister, and my sister would talk about how I just couldn't be open because I was embarrassed, just completely false. I would be perfectly happy never seeing any of them again. I can't believe my sister still sees them. At this, I tell my half-sister to leave and that Thursdays are canceled. My sister puts up a little bit of a fight, but I ignore her until she leaves. She keeps saying sorry over and over again, but honestly, I'm done with her. I've blocked her and will be no contact with her for the time being. A complete betrayal of my feelings and relationships. As for my fiancé and I am still very upset. She went behind my back with my sister, never asked me about it, let my sister manipulate her and honestly hurt me. I told her I love her, but my trust is broken. We've agreed to go to couples therapy and see if we can repair the relationship. I hope we can, but I'd say it's a toss-up for me. She's got a lot of work to do. Edit. I know some people might think I'm being too hard on my fiancé given everything that's happened, but the truth is, we're both navigating this mess together. She was lied to and manipulated just as much as I was, and I've never claimed to be completely blameless in this situation. That's why we decided to go to couples counseling instead of handling this individually. It's important for us to work through this together as a team and rebuild that trust. We're both committed to figuring this out, and I'm not about to throw away a relationship with someone I truly love because of what other people did to us. Update 2. August 15th, 2024. A lot has happened. I'm just going to try and spill it in order for you all. So after my sister left, I told my fiancé I loved her, but I didn't trust her currently, that I felt she took my sister's side instead of mine. So I continued to sleep on the couch for a couple of nights. She was walking on eggshells around me, and I hated it, but I also just wasn't ready to forgive her. Then Friday night after I hung out with friends, I came home and crashed on the couch. We had had an innocuous conversation, but she did ask me to come to bed, and I told her I just wasn't ready. I woke up to pee at like 3 a.m., and she was sleeping on the floor next to me. I don't know why exactly, but it touched me deeply, and I cried a little bit. It meant so much to know that she wanted to be near me even when I was being unloving. It really turned the tide. I woke up a few hours later and she was making me breakfast. A surprise, as Saturday is usually my big breakfast making day. We sat down to eat, and she was keeping the conversation light, still on eggshells, but I decided to tell her a story from my childhood. I told her how Dale used to make breakfast for the family but never included me. I was older, so I slept in, and when I got up, there was rarely any breakfast left, and if there was, it was in the fridge and no one would eat with me. I told her how much Saturday brunch with us meant to me and how I hadn't really ever talked about it, and that wasn't fair to her. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. She apologized again, but I told her I didn't need it, that I forgave her, and while I still want to do couples therapy because I think it'll help me express my family issues with her in a healthy way, I'm ready to send out the save the dates. I then asked her to massage my back because the couch was a nightmare to sleep on, and she knew I was serious. I don't love people touching me except my fiancé, and I had really not allowed it since the original incident. I know most of you did not want me to forgive my fiancé, but I love her and she loves me. She made a huge mistake, but she's never experienced anything like what I went through, and she showed remorse. As for my sister, my mom reached out via a phone number that I didn't recognize and told me I should forgive my sister. I told her to screw off, and she just confirmed my sister really had never had a relationship with me at all because if she knew me, she would know that contact with my mom would only make the situation worse. I then blocked the number. This happened Thursday evening. She tried to come by Sunday, but my fiancé and I were out. She left a note apologizing and saying she did not ask Mom to contact me, and she's sorry she did that. My fiancé wants nothing to do with my sister anymore but left the decision up to me. I told her that she was my family, so if she didn't want her there, she wouldn't be there. A little jab for sure, but she took it well and said she didn't want her there. We have been getting back to normal. It will still take time, and I think I may try individual therapy because as I was thinking about all the incidents, I'm not so sure the family situation is worse than even I have acknowledged, and it might be time to really deal with it. The save the dates were sent out yesterday, and everything is still on. I'm not sure I'll update again, but thank you all for letting me process and vent. Edit. Regarding my sister, no, we didn't send her a save the date. We made the decision to just cross her off the list entirely. I know this means my side of the aisle is going to look a little emptier compared to my fiancé's, but honestly, I'm fine with that. In the end, my fiancé is the family I want to build my future with, and that's what matters most to me. As for the breakfast situation from my childhood, I know some people may not understand why I didn't just get up early and join in, but it's really not that simple. Growing up, dealing with Dale was always a challenge. Every time I tried to join in, I'd get passive-aggressive remarks like, "Looks like he's ruined daddy-kid time from Dale," along with eye rolls and annoyed glances. It was clear that I wasn't really wanted there, and that kind of treatment sticks with you. I get that some of you might have had great relationships with your parents or step-parents and can't relate, and that's great for you, but reliving these painful memories over and over just to explain myself is exhausting. I came here to share my story, seek advice, and vent, not to reopen old wounds for others' entertainment. This update was meant as a thank you to those who supported me, but honestly, now I'm second-guessing even sharing. I probably won't update again after this. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Caught my cheating wife having an affair with her assistant at our office. So I secretly gathered evidence and filed for divorce. Now she's begging to win me back as our divorce gets ugly. My wife, I'll call her Sarah, and I work for a pretty big not-for-profit in Western Canada. This particular organization is in the public eye and has a lot to do with politicians, and for the last 8 or so years, our organization has been trying to get a certain agreement signed and recognized by the federal government. Anyways, without getting too into details of that, my wife's position meant that she was constantly on the news and working with big wigs and traveling the country and kissing people's asses, I guess literally and figuratively. Now, I found out she was cheating on me with her assistant that she hired about 6 months ago. She was in the department upstairs and me in the registration department. We actually met at the organization 8 years ago. We both started within a few months. We both worked our asses off to get into the positions that we're in now. It wasn't easy, and obviously, like I said, she kisses ass and she's super charismatic and has a way with words. When she speaks, people listen. When she walks into a room, she demands people's attention. I'm a little more introverted, and for years that really worked for us. Well, I ended up having some health troubles and had to go on short-term disability, so I wasn't at work for a little bit. And this is sort of when this all started, or at least when I figured something was up. Some things to note. I'm almost positive that assistant didn't know we were married. I'm sure of this because he would look at me strange when I brought her lunch or brought her coffee in the mornings. He looked at me as if like, "Who the heck are you?" He knew who I was and that I worked in the building, but I'm not sure that Sarah ever told him who I was to her. I mean, it's not like we went around the building saying, "Hey, we're married." But like, the people who work there know, and gossip travels fast around this organization because people like drama and like starting drama, which is why I ended up finding out that things were going on. A little background info. Sarah is 45 and I'm 43. Turns out that we actually went to the same high school, but it was a bigger school, so our paths never crossed. We have 2 kids. We have a son who's 7 and a daughter who's 5. They're literally the loves of my life, and I truly believe my life didn't start until they arrived. We hit it off right away, and at the time it was a big deal that we started seeing each other at work because it was against office policy to date anyone that you worked with. Technically, Sarah and I never really worked together because we dealt with such different issues, but when we had company-wide meetings, obviously we'd see each other there, and sometimes the projects I was working on would overlap with what she was dealing with upstairs. Eventually, people just let it slide and it just became another thing, and like I said, we never screamed it off the rooftops and nobody seemed to mind. Not only that, but when you work in an office, people get kind of crazy. People flirt with everybody, and my wife is attractive, I will say that, and I constantly heard it from other people, and I even heard it from a lot of the female staff. People in an office space get kind of horny. It's sort of pathetic in a way. So, her assistant, I'll call him Trevor, he's 29, has a political science degree. I'll admit it, he's a good-looking guy, and there was only about 12 men in the whole building compared to like 40 or so women, so we were outnumbered. And when Trevor started, these single ladies literally pounced at him from the start. It seemed like Sarah could have cared less. She seemed all business. She didn't even bring him up to me, really. I knew that she was hiring an assistant, but I didn't know that she hired a male. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when I saw him and saw how good-looking he was, I sort of understood why she didn't say anything, and at one point she even said that he reminded her of me, but a young version of me. And then another time she said that Trevor was the version of me if I didn't get in my own head and I took a different career path. I was sort of offended by that. How am I supposed to take that? When I found out she hired him and didn't tell me for a few weeks, I asked her why and she said, "Why is it such a big deal?" And then she laughed in my face and she said that I felt threatened by a little boy. I'm like, threatened? And she's like, yeah, you're jealous. And yeah, I guess I was in some way, and yeah, maybe I was threatened, but I tried to argue to her that her admitting the fact that he was a guy and was good-looking sort of made a point, and she said I was being ridiculous because I wouldn't have had the same reaction if it was a good-looking woman. And I was like, yeah, okay, true, but would she still have slept with him and made comments that he reminded her of a young me if it was a woman? No. Not only that, but I heard our secretary asking her questions about Trevor and they'd both be giggling. Another red flag. Yeah, okay, maybe I was jealous, but it wouldn't be. Not only that, but I wasn't feeling well physically, so it was really eating away at me. I wasn't feeling my best, I wasn't my best, and I knew it, and I feel like Sarah really took advantage of that. So yeah, I go on short-term disability, and this means I'm at home for a couple of weeks. I become the main caregiver for my kids, and Sarah starts to work really long hours and goes away on trips. So, when she was on these trips, she took this assistant with her. And then she's posting pictures on Instagram of herself in clothes that aren't really professional or like, on the beach, and I can tell that she has no bikini top on. The photo is just of her, but I know that he's with her. I comment on the photo and I'm like, scandalous. But she doesn't react to it or anything. Then I creep Trevor's page. He's got a public page and see that he's in fact posting photos of the same beach, but it's of the water. But then I know that they're together and I know that my wife is laying on the beach next to him without a bikini top on. I text her and I'm like, should you be posting photos like that on Instagram? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you're not wearing a shirt and you're showing a lot of skin. Do you think that's smart to be doing when you have the position that you do? People look up to you. And then we got in a huge fight and she didn't talk to me for the rest of her work trip. And I say that lightly, work trip. She was sleeping with him at this point. And another note, yeah, these work trips took her all over the country and she'd get time for business and pleasure. That disgusts me now, but I'm trying to just get through this with self-deprecating humor because that's the only way I'm surviving right now. But yeah, she had free time on these trips. This particular trip was in Kelowna, British Columbia. So it was nice weather and she knew she'd have some time for the beach. Apparently, while she was here, I was taking care of the kids. I didn't mind this at all, but what I did mind was the fact that she was having relations with someone other than me, her husband, and it's embarrassing because everyone at the office knew this. They'd stay at work late together. They'd constantly be in meetings with a closed door and closed window blinds, but she tried to argue that she was having meetings about confidential things. Oh yeah, confidential, all right. A woman at work who didn't actually like her very much, Angela, ended up telling me recently that she heard moans and slurps and all kinds of atrocious sounds coming from that room. Angela and Sarah shared an office wall, and the thing about this office building is that it was gifted to us and it didn't have as many offices in the building originally. When the organization started, we literally didn't have any money, so we had to just make do and throw up walls, so some of the office walls in this place are paper thin and weren't meant to be permanent. And if Angela would have told me about these noises she heard back then, I would have just thought that she's saying this to complain about Sarah because she doesn't like her, but after it all came out and I caught them red-handed, I don't doubt her for a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, she's spending a lot of late nights there and there's whispers going on about how close they're getting and whatnot. I'm in total denial. I can't believe she'd ever do anything like that to me. She posts more pictures on her Instagram and it looks like someone is taking these photos of her. These photos look like they're in really intimate restaurants, dark, candlelit places. When she comes home after going out like this, she claims they're business meetings, and I sort of say they look like really intimate business meetings. And with my particular sickness at the time, I was having a hard time and she never, not once, asked how I was doing. She was always too busy working, and I can't even remember the last time she was home to say goodnight to our kids. Even our kids were asking, "Where's Mommy? When's Mommy going to be home? I miss Mommy." It broke my damn heart. And what do I tell them? Oh, Mommy's working. Mommy's trying to help her citizens. Nope. Mommy's just cheating on Daddy and throwing her family away. Anyways, One particular evening I get a text from a number I didn't recognize and it was like, "Get to work right now. You're going to want to see this. Don't call your wife. Don't let her know you're on her way, but head to her office." And I'm like, weird. I tried calling the number but it just disconnected. So I call my mom to come over to be at the house because my kids were sleeping and I didn't want to wake them up to go. So she comes over and asks if everything is okay and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I just have to go help Sarah with something." So I go and I park down the road so she can't see my car in the parking lot. I sneak into the side door with my key card. The lights are off in the building, but when I go upstairs, I can see that the lights in her side of the building are still on. It's long after everyone has gone home for the day, too long after her, in fact. And then I walk slowly up to her office. The door is open and I see Trevor just giving it to her on her desk. She's bent over and she looks up and sees me. I'm just standing there. She has to hit Trevor to stop and then she quickly pulls her skirt back down and he quickly zips his pants up. And all I could say was, "Wow, Sarah." And it's the same old story. She tries to tell me that she can explain everything. It's not what I thought. And then I'm trying to walk away and she's pulling at my arm and I'm trying to brush her off. Trevor doesn't come out of her office, but I'm trying to make my way down the stairs and back out the side door. She's following me, and then suddenly she switches gears and she starts getting mad at me for catching them. She's like, "Who told you? Why are you here? You didn't trust me, did you?" And that last one made me laugh. I said, "You clearly haven't given me any reason to trust you. I mean, what did I just walk in on?" But she's getting mad at me. She starts saying that I'm insecure and she can't be with someone who's like this. And then she starts attacking my illness and she's saying things that I'm not the man she married and I'm weak and bringing her down. I literally had to tell her to shut up and not come home. I got in my car and drove back home. Somehow word got around to what had happened, and people from work started texting me asking if it was true and if I was okay. Yeah, in that order. Shortly after that, I was supposed to get off of short-term disability. I asked to work from home for a little bit until I figured out what I wanted to do and how I was going to handle the situation. I knew that Sarah had the ability to pull the plug on my job, but I didn't want to lose my house or my kids, so I knew I needed this job. I needed to figure out my next move first. I contacted my lawyer and I told them I wanted to start the divorce process. Well, where I'm from, we have to separate first, so I was like, "Okay. Yep, let's do that." Then a few days after that, I get a message from the same random number that texted me before. It was a video and the video was all shaky, but you could tell that it was Sarah and Trevor making out in her office again on her desk. They were wearing different clothes, so it wasn't the same night that I caught them. Then another message came in and it was another video. This time it was of Trevor and Sarah making out in her car in the parking lot. I saved them all. I replied, "Thank you," and they responded with a thumbs up emoji. I sat there for a while wondering what I was going to do. I had to make it good. Then I knew there was an election coming up, and what I mean by that is that the person Sarah worked for had to be elected back into office, and the only way Sarah was going anywhere was if the person she worked for didn't get voted back in. So, I contacted the person who was the opposition to Sarah's boss. I also happened to know that this person had a really good chance at getting in but just needed a little bit more endorsements. I figured that this whole thing with Sarah could really look bad for Sarah's boss in their campaign. Well, when I contacted the opposition, I told them everything and sent them the videos that had been sent to me. I started endorsing this person, and as soon as this happened and the videos ended up getting spread all over the office, it totally divided the office. The organization had some really tense energy around it, and the whole process took about 5 months. During those 5 months, I had to go into the office and pretend like nothing was happening and that Sarah and I weren't going through a separation. But it was awkward, I'm not gonna lie. And Trevor ended up getting let go. I don't even know exactly when, but Sarah let him go and then she hired some 18-year-old intern. The intern was a girl, but not only that, as soon as these women at the office found out that I was single, they were coming at me left, right, and center. I hadn't had this kind of attention in years, and honestly, it felt good. Sure, I flirted back. I'm not ashamed to admit that, but I'll never shit where I eat ever again. Been there, done that, and my wife sucker punched me with a good-looking EF boy. Sarah tried to come home a few times and was apologizing, and she said she missed the kids, but I said she was never around before. She never mentioned anything about missing me or the kids. So the only thing that's changed is that she's going to lose it all in a matter of months. Legally, I had to give her some visitation rights, so she did have the right to come and see them at scheduled times, but I wouldn't be there. My mom was in the house, though, while this was happening because I didn't actually trust Sarah. She was very much the person who would try to pull a fast one and lock me out of the house or attempt to brainwash the kids against me. I wasn't going to let that happen. Anyways, when the election came, Sarah's boss didn't get in. Eureka! Sweet, sweet revenge. Within a week, the opposition came in and they hired someone else to be their Sarah. Not only that, but I was given a $15,000 promotion. We still have a bit to go on this road to divorce, but I just wanted to share my story. Think twice about dating anybody at work. You never know who you'll catch bending them over the desk you chose together. As for the messenger, I did end up asking Angela if it was her, but she was adamant that it wasn't. She thinks that maybe it was one of these women here that wanted to shack up with me for themselves. I like to think that it's Angela and she'll just never admit that it was her. I think she just really saw her chance to get rid of Sarah and took it. Now on to the next story. Story 12. Girlfriend refuses to tell her family about me, saying it's to protect her daughter. I'll try to make this short. I want to know your opinion on this because maybe I'm blinded by love or something. I'm seeing a woman that has a 13-year-old daughter. We met online and we've been exclusive for about 6 months now. She lives in a nearby city, about 1.5 hours of travel time between us, and we see each other usually 1 day per week. She sleeps here usually. She is divorced, not legally divorced yet, for about 1 year, and her ex is from the same city as her. I'm madly in love with this woman. Actually, I'm pretty sure that I never liked someone as I like this girl. I tend to be a rational guy, but I guess this girl is my weak spot, so an outsider's advice will be great. My problem is that she doesn't want to tell her daughter about me yet, and I totally understand that. We don't know each other that well, and she has to protect the kid since she doesn't know if the kid will be hurt by knowing her mom is seeing someone else or if she'll suffer from an eventual breakup on our relationship, etc. I'm fine with that, but this is causing some issues in this relationship that I think it's a bit too much. Here's a summary of most of it. I'm not allowed to go to her city because it's a small city where everyone knows each other and someone could see us together and tell her daughter. And that would break the confidence bond they have together since the daughter wouldn't hear this from her mom but instead from other people. Her friends and even her mother don't know about me. She says that it's just the way she is. She doesn't like telling other people about her personal life, and also her daughter could discover something from them if she tells them about me. She said she has some trust issues because of her past relationships, so she doesn't trust me 100% yet. She told her ex that she was seeing someone. I think this is strange as hell because it breaks everything about the previous points. When confronted at one point, I told her it seems like I'm her lover. She says she liked me a lot, but she's not ready yet to show me to her family and friends. I was sure I was not her lover when we ran into her ex at a rock show. She said that we should not kiss there so we wouldn't taunt him and don't get into a fight, but near the end of the concert she started kissing me and he eventually saw it. I already said, "I love you," and it was true. She said it to me once when she was really drunk and never said it again. When I asked why, she said that she wanted to say it when she really felt it. She didn't want it to feel forced. So my question is, do you guys think she is still protecting her daughter? Or has she just realized that we won't have a future together? I honestly have no problem with shallow relationships. Actually, my last year was basically that, and I was pretty happy. But I'm really emotionally invested in this girl. So if this relationship doesn't have a future, I want to get out of it ASAP. I told this to her about 2 months ago. We almost broke up, and she said she wanted another chance to make things different because she really likes me. But here we are 2 months after, and everything is still the same. Am I overreacting? Is she just using me for stress relief or something? Maybe she's using me to get her ex back? I'm starting to get crazy. Thank you for reading this. More info. We started by being FWB for a month or so until my birthday when she told me she was falling in love with me. By that point, I was also developing feelings for her, and we decided to start dating. I didn't mind all that secrecy when we were FWB, but I thought that after dating, things would change. When I told her about this the day I told her it seemed like I was her lover, not her boyfriend, she said my requests were reasonable and she would work on these things. It's been 2 months since that talk, and I'm not seeing much change. Now about her divorce. She says that she's just too busy to handle it right now, but it's not a religious/conservative family thing. From what she told me, they would be totally fine with her dating before being legally divorced since they are already separated. On the other hand, she hasn't even started the divorce legally. That is a red flag for sure. Also, I want to go to her city, but she's stalling. My limit of waiting will be a couple of months at most. It will be her birthday by then, and the way she acts will tell me a lot. Where she'll be, where she'll invite me, etc. Also, I know I'm not a secret because I know for a fact that her ex saw us kissing on a show. Maybe they are in an open relationship or something, but I know for sure that I'm not a secret to him, just to everyone else. And yes, I'm sure it's the guy because I stalked both on Facebook when we started dating. Not my proudest moment, but I also don't know her, and she's not a fan of talking. I eventually confessed to her that I did a background check on them, and she seemed to be cool with it. They were together for a long time, 16 years, I think. According to her, she was the one that asked for a split because he was really sexist and abusive. She wasn't allowed to go out and see her friends, and every time a guy talked to her, he would be jealous as hell, etc. She says he's not taking the divorce well and has become a more violent person, according to their mutual friends. He usually didn't get into bar/show fights, but now he's starting to do things like he's pissed at life because he lost his girl. It's also one of the reasons she says she doesn't want me to go to her town because she thinks that her ex will want to fight with me. Regarding the show, she told him about me before the show, and at the show she said, "Okay, let's just not make out so he doesn't think we're taunting him." The show had a 10-hour duration and lots of bands. First, we didn't do anything. Eventually, we started holding hands, and by the end of the show we were lightly kissing. One of his friends saw it and of course told him, and then he started going every 10 minutes to where we were, but we never kissed in front of him. I started thinking about how the guy must feel, so I didn't want to rub "I stole your girl" loser on his face or anything. She doesn't live with him anymore. She lives with her mom and her daughter now, or at least that is what she told me, but I can't be sure because, I can't visit them. At this point, I'm conflicted between having a really good time together, we really have, or having some self-respect and dumping her. And yeah, the self-respect option should win here. It's just that I got caught in feelings that I never had in 34 years of life. Anyway, I'll ask for a timeline, and if she isn't able to even think about that, it'll actually say a lot and proves that she doesn't see a future with me. Update, so I decided to talk to her. Unfortunately, it was via WhatsApp since we live a bit far from each other. I prefer it was in person, but then I would have to wait until Saturday, and I'd rather get this out of my chest ASAP. So about the divorce. She says they are not together, and it's not a piece of paper that will change anything. She still doesn't want to talk much about why she isn't starting the legal divorce. She did say something about him working informally, and this would complicate things on the money split because legally/officially it's like he never earned any money in his life. About the hiding me. She still insisted that it was in the best interest of her daughter that I shouldn't be seen in her city and be known by her friends or family. She said that unfortunately she couldn't give me a time frame of when she would be able to change this, and she understood if it was a deal breaker for me. So I had no other choice but to break up with her. She apologized for being complicated and hoped that someday we could be friends. I still don't know if I'm happy or sad. I really needed to get this burden off my shoulders, and I know I wouldn't be able to continue a relationship with these restrictions. On the other hand, I can't help but think that I lost an awesome girl and maybe the one. I know that you only got my side of the issue and you think she's a monster or something, but it's not true unless she's the greatest actress ever. When we were arguing about this face-to-face 2 months ago, she had an explanation for all of those issues. Seeing deep in her eyes, I truly trusted her on all the excuses she gave, and I know she's a sweet, awesome girl and mother, but I can't work with what she is able to give me at the moment, and it's a bummer. Anyways, life goes on. Thank you all for the feedback and help on the previous thread. Now on to the next story. Story 13. Parrot exposed my wife's affair with her intern after anger management fixed our toxic marriage. I caught them on hidden camera and got her fired. I, 32M, was married to my ex-wife, 29F, for 3 years. We were madly in love, but unfortunately our marriage couldn't work because of her infidelity. The first time my ex-wife and I met was on a dating site. As of that time, I was desperately looking for someone to settle down with because I was tired of being lonely, and she came around at the right time. So, after meeting each other physically for the first time, we had more dates, and as we got to know ourselves better, we fell deeply in love. Our relationship started as a very beautiful one. We used to hang out every weekend, spend quality time with each other, and do fun stuff together. But after about a year of dating my wife, I noticed she had anger issues. At first, her anger issues started as nagging and making mountains out of molehills. Then it got so bad that she would break stuff whenever she was angry. Then once she became calm again, she would apologize and cry for forgiveness. When I noticed this bad attribute, I wanted to break up with her, but each time she begged me, I would forgive her, only for the same thing to repeat itself. There was even a time I was so close to breaking up with her because she had an altercation with my mom one time she came to visit me, but because she had enrolled for anger management classes and I saw a bit of improvement, I forgave her. All this while, I didn't know I was shooting myself in the leg, and marrying her was one of my mistakes. When most people tell stories of how they enjoyed the first years of their marriage, I can't relate to that because the first 2 years of my marriage were filled with fights and arguments. My wife had multiple personalities. One day she would be all loving and lovely. The next day she would be so angry over little things she shouldn't be angry about. Aside from the anger issues my wife had, she was a sweet and hardworking wife. She took care of me and my needs in the house too. She also worked for a big organization in the town we lived in, so in terms of finances, she was earning more. Despite earning more, we split the bills equally and we both took care of our responsibilities. I think I kept holding on to my wife and believed she would change because she was putting in a lot of effort to be a better person and I wanted to support her. I also knew she grew up in a toxic and abusive environment, and how she was raised contributed greatly to her anger issues. Whenever she did something terrible or broke something, I wanted to leave her, but I couldn't. We had a lot of beautiful memories together, and I didn't want to judge her based on her bad side alone. She also kept telling me that I was the only guy who had stuck with her in both the good and bad times. None of her relationships worked in the past because all the men she dated kept leaving her. I wanted to be the good husband who would stick to his marital vows of, for better or for worse. Fortunately, the relationship between my wife and I started getting better in the 3rd year of our marriage. Months after our 2nd anniversary, I noticed that the relationship between my wife and I had improved so much. She no longer argued and fought over everything, which was a big step up for us. Initially, I thought that she was getting better at controlling her anger because of the new therapy she was getting. Also, it didn't just stop with the improvement in our communication. My wife began to act like a totally different person. For example, she often complained about work when she returned from the office, but that changed. Instead, she would come home and tell me how she was finally getting along with her colleagues in her organization. Aside from that, she became more cheerful and everything seemed to change about her. Honestly speaking, all the changes I noticed for months were because of her anger management therapy sessions, and I even went as far as dropping a great review in a 5-star on her therapist's website. It felt so good to have peace in my marriage and hold a conversation for a whole day without ditching plates. Out of happiness, I even told my friends about her improvement and they were so happy for me. On the other hand, when my wife's anger issues improved, she became so engrossed with work around the same time, which did not allow us to get as close as I wanted. Despite her busy work schedule, I never complained because it was better for her to be calm and engrossed with work than constantly fighting and complaining about work. While I was innocently and wholeheartedly happy for my wife, I didn't know she was doing the unthinkable behind me. The day I found out, I returned home and my parrot started saying a name I didn't know. Our parrot was good with picking new names or anything that sounded like a name, so when I heard that name, I suspected that someone had visited our house and he must have heard someone call the name. When I asked my wife about it, she insisted that he must have gotten the name from the television, and that did not sit well with me. Mainly because when I tried to argue that my parrot couldn't pick the name from a movie, she flipped for the first time in a long while and walked out of me. The moment she walked out of me in anger, I suspected that something was going on. I thought someone must have visited our home and my wife didn't want me to know about it, so I decided to find out. In the following days, I bought a small-sized camera and hid it in my parrot's cage to confirm my suspicion. Then the next day, I told my wife I was traveling to the nearby state to visit my mom, but I was crashing at a friend's house that same evening. As I stayed in my friend's house to watch my house, I saw something that shattered my heart and destroyed our marriage. I watched as my wife came in with one of her organization's new interns, and they did it on our couch right in front of the bird and in the camera. Before I found out my wife was cheating on me, I told my friends about my parrot and the strange male name it kept saying, but they said I was paranoid and my parrot might have heard the name from a movie, and my wife flipped and walked out of me because I was annoyed. It would be an understatement to say I was disappointed, shattered, and devastated. I could not believe that the same woman I tolerated her anger issues and stood by her on the days I should have been out there breathing fresh air was cheating on me with an intern. It felt like a bad dream I needed to wake up from, but sadly it was my harsh reality. About 2 days after I learned about my wife's infidelity, my broken state turned to anger, and I thought of ways to pay her back. Finally, I had something, and I knew destroying all her years of hard work and commitment to her organization would be a major hit for her. So, I sent the video footage to her company, and I was sure they would take action. I returned home a week later because I wanted to cool off and put myself together. When I eventually got home, I met my wife at home. She had been fired by this time, and the intern had been dismissed. When I asked my wife why she wasn't at work, she said her company was downsizing, so they had to let her go. Immediately she said that. I started laughing and told her I knew why she was fired. She was confused and didn't understand what I meant. Before I went home, I had already contacted a divorce lawyer to start processing our divorce. So I told my wife I was behind the video sent to her organization, and at the snap of a finger, she flipped and started yelling at the top of her voice. She said she was glad she cheated on me because I was a weak man and I didn't satisfy her in bed, so she had to make herself happy. What an excuse. When she said that, my anger level skyrocketed, and before she had the opportunity to start throwing things at me as usual, I pulled her with strength and threw her out of my house. She made a scene outside, and after she was tired of yelling, she took the few things I had thrown out and left. A few days later, she started calling my phone nonstop and she sent multiple messages saying that she was a changed person and would never cheat on me again. I'd be stupid if I gave her another opportunity. We eventually divorced, and I've been living my best life since then. I never thought I'd say this, but I feel more at peace without my wife. It's almost like I've been let out of an invincible cage and I feel so relieved. I do not miss my ex-wife and I'm so glad things turned out that way. Or else I might still be stuck in our marriage hoping that she would evolve into the kind of woman I wanted. One thing I've learned the hard way is to never try and save people like my wife because you will drown in the process of saving them. As for my precious parrot, I'm glad he helped me get out of that terrible marriage. Now none of my friends doubt my parrot anymore. Now on to the next story. Story 14. Girl of my dreams that friend-zoned me for years has finally come back into my life. But now I feel like I'm about to lose my best friend of 9 years. When I was 15, I fell for a girl, we'll call her Lily. She was my dad's best friend's daughter. We met when we were 6, and she's always been the person who has motivated me in life. Even at a young age, I felt like she was miles ahead of me in everything. She always seemed to have everything together. She was playing sports, making good grades in school, had tons of friends, had a great connection with her family, and seemed so highly motivated. While me, on the other hand, before meeting her, hardly could motivate myself to do anything. I think it's had a lot to do with my troubled childhood. Biological mother died giving birth to me, and I think the whole experience really broke my father mentally. He remarried by the time I was 2 to a woman who pretty much treated me like dirt my entire life. It probably sounds ridiculous, but meeting Lily really turned my life around. I picked up soccer and fell in love with a game. I worked hard in school and got my grades up, and I just was always striving to be a better person like herself. And we formed a great connection. When she turned 15, her dad took a job offer in New York. We're from Maryland. I was always certain if they didn't move, Lily and I would have dated, had kids, and lived happily ever after. When Lily left, I felt pretty lost. We stayed in touch via texting and emailing, but it wasn't the same as in person. I met a girl, Gabrielle, shortly after Lily left, and we hit it off pretty well in high school. We quickly became best friends, and due to my family situation, I spent a lot of time with her. In many ways, she reminded me of Lily, although they were different. I won't say we were very romantically involved, but we did kiss on a few different occasions, and she inevitably became my first. Though every time she got a boyfriend, I respectively backed off, giving them proper space for someone in a relationship. In college, during a couple of those times when Gabrielle had a BF and I couldn't spend time with her, I would catch the train to New York to watch Lily play soccer for her college team. Like I said before, we kept in touch via text, but I never told her I would go watch her play. I felt it would be too hard for me to physically interact with her, knowing the situation. Looking back, I kind of regret it. Maybe we could have tried the long-distance thing and started our exclusive dating sooner. Fast forward to now. I graduated college, took a great federal IT job opportunity with growth potential, and one day our hiring manager brings in a new hire. I turned around and nearly fall out of my chair when I see that it's Lily. We basically pick back up right where we left off before she left 9 years ago. Lily's best friend actually works in our office as well. She joined the team around the same time as me, and I never realized they were friends. They often speak to each other in Korean, but don't know that I took enough courses in college and practicing on my own to understand Korean, although I'll admit, can't speak it fluently. Her best friend is always teasing her about me, and she often drops hints. Long story short, we started talking, going to lunch dates, and hanging out outside of work. We play on a co-ed soccer team together, share similar values in life, financial goals, and all that good jazz. It's perfect. During the time after college and starting this job, Gabrielle and I sort of lost contact. We both got busy and worked in different cities. While I still considered us best friends, we didn't hang out anymore, just occasionally phone calls and texting every so often. After I explained my rekindled friendship with Lily over the phone, Gabrielle nearly immediately began to seek a more serious relationship with me. She knows I've always had a thing for her, but it seems it took a couple bad relationships and nearly 9 years of friendship for her to see what she had in front of her. In the gentlest way possible, I declined, wanting to seek something more serious with her. Our timing had just passed. Really? I've pretty much explained everything about Gabrielle to Lily. I don't want to hide anything from her, and she gave me her honest opinion. It's clear that we like each other a lot. I'll go on and say I love her. No one else in the world in my eyes will ever compare to her. Personality, looks, safety, and well-being, everything. Can I or should I still be friends with Gabrielle? She isn't a bad person in my eyes, and I don't see anything particularly wrong with us. But I guess, is it possible to even remain friends with someone based on this situation? Despite our strange friendship over the years, many called it friends with benefits. I never really personally felt strung along, though that's how most of my friends saw it. Even though I liked and cared about her, we never explicitly said, let's try dating. And honestly, I think subconsciously always had Lily in the back of mind, which made our friendship, despite the periods where she had boyfriends, okay with me. I've never been one with a lot of friends, so the close ones I do have are quite special to me, and she has been there in my times of needs, boyfriends or not. I guess what I'm trying to say is it okay to be selfish for love and be with that one person that makes you feel the most alive in the entire world, and disregarding all other conflicts and troubles of others, even best friends, to make yourself happy? Lily and I are officially a couple, but I can't shake this awful feeling of guilt for Gabrielle, that I just ditched her as soon as the girl I've always wanted came back into my life. More info. I think my guilt comes from feeling like I did to Gabby what she did to me. While I never explicitly told her, or anyone really, that I was waiting around for Lily to come back into my life, I always assumed I'd never see her again or get to spend quality time with her. Just like a pathetic or desperate afterthought that guys have about girls that they let slip out of their life on good terms. A friend that I went to college with who knew me back before Lily left for New York said, "Oh, I see you found yourself a temporary replacement." When he saw Gabby with me in college being all touched and feely at that time, it got me pretty riled up. Looking back, I definitely regret how I acted, though I've apologized profusely to him since then. I never saw her as a replacement, or at least my intentions weren't to have her replace anyone in my head. I just saw her as a girl that happened to resemble a good friend of mine. I wanted to believe I thoroughly enjoyed her company and the good times we had together. At the end of the day, I'll honestly never really be sure, and though it might sound cruel, I don't think I'll ever get the chance to find out. Finally, reading through the comments, it's pretty clear that what Gabby and I had wasn't really as good of a friendship as I thought it was. I think the worst part is, it's what my friends have been telling me for years, but I kind of refused to listen. I think I might have been blinded by my attraction to her or the slim thought that maybe I was more to her than just a guy to lean on when she was lonely. Every time I would mention it or bring it up to her, she would just sweep it under the rug with some sweet talk or cutesy act, and I'd be right back to square one. Thank you all for the real eye-opener. Update: the girl of my dreams, 24F, has finally come back into my life, 24M. But now I feel like I'm about to lose my best friend, 23F, of 9 years. Gabby reached out to me last Friday via text and asked if I could meet up with her for some coffee or something. I won't lie, I was extremely apprehensive, despite originally being so dead set on saving our friendship. But I talked it over with Lily, and she told me that I had nothing to worry about. She wasn't worried about me and Gabby. She believed that I should hear what she had to say at the very least. So reluctantly, I agreed to meet with her, even though my gut told me I probably shouldn't. It's not like I thought anything would happen. It's just saying no to someone over the phone or through a text is far less difficult than in person. We met up a small cafe a few blocks from her apartment. She was already sitting there when I arrived, and I was so nervous to see her, but I went in and sat down anyways. She could clearly tell how nervous I was and at first seemed to have no problem taking every bit of advantage of it. We sat in silence for the first 5 minutes or so, but she kept giving me this look. A look she used to give me when we'd go to parties together. A "hey, I'm horny and bored, let's go back to my place" kind of look. I couldn't even look away from her, but eventually got up from the table and told her that I wasn't here for that. I felt her tug on my sleeve, and when I looked back, she had already began to cry. So I sat back down and listened as she started confessing that she hoped the day would never come that I find someone special in my life other than her, and that she deeply regretted taking my company and affection for granted while she had it. I'd always be her biggest regret. She apologized for everything that she had done, all the years of leading me on, pushing to the side to date other guys, and then pulling me back in when no one was there for her. I tried to apologize as well for my end of the hardship and the way things ended, but she abruptly stopped me at this, getting very emotional once again. She told me to promise her that I'd never let anyone do to me what she ultimately did to me, and to value myself and not to let my kindness and fair nature be abused and walked over. After her little breakdown, she got herself together and we talked a bit more about the past, the present, and future goals and just kind of talked about whatever came up. Before I left, she told me that today was her last day here, that she took a job in Canada and would be catching a flight later today so that she could be closer to family and with her mom again. She also asked that I remove her number from my phone and that she would do the same. It seemed extreme at the time, but I did it anyways. Maybe it was for the best. We stopped at my car and hugged one last time and wished her the best in life before watching her walk away for the last time. A little anticlimactic or weird, but that's how our friendship ended, I guess. In the long run, all I needed to do was wait long enough, but who really knows? I don't feel sad or disappointed in the way it ended, and like I said, it's probably the best, and I'm honestly satisfied with the closure. As for Lily and I, looking back at my original post, I didn't make it as clear as I should. We've been dating since the end of January, and it's been going great. It was never really about Gabby versus Lily. My answer was always Lily, but more that I just didn't know if I should keep trying to force a friendship based on 9 years of prior history. Also, it turns out it's not as much as a one-sided crush as I originally thought with Lily. Her friend, the one I work with, gleefully told me the embarrassing story of how Lily asked her to get tabs on me, which eventually led to Lily looking for a job back in Maryland instead of New York where she graduated. While I wasn't the only reason she came back, apparently I played a pretty big part in it, which makes me happy. Thanks for all the advice. While the issue eventually sorted itself out, the comments were really an eye-opener as to what I actually went through over the years. It was really nice to get some unbiased opinions on what I should do. Now on to the next story. Story 15. Husband planned a trip with his bros only after our baby was born. I begged him to stay, but he refused. This situation has caused a lot of tension between my husband and me, and now I'm questioning whether I'm being unreasonable. I, 30F, gave birth to our first child, Olivia, 2 months ago. Being a first-time mom has been both beautiful and overwhelming. My husband, Jake, 32M, was incredibly supportive during the pregnancy and promised that after Olivia was born, he would be there for me every step of the way, especially during those challenging first few months. Before Olivia was born, Jake and his friends had been planning a brothers-only trip for this summer. A week-long vacation to a cabin in the mountains for hiking, fishing, and bonding. When the trip was being discussed, I reminded Jake that Olivia would only be a few months old, and we would be deep in the newborn phase. He reassured me that if things got too tough, he would cancel the trip to help me out, and I trusted him. Now that Olivia is here, things have been harder than I anticipated. Between the sleepless nights, breastfeeding struggles, and just trying to adjust to motherhood, I've been feeling overwhelmed. Jake has been helpful, but I can tell he's excited about this trip, which is coming up next month. Last week, I asked Jake if he could consider canceling the trip, reminding him of his promise. I told him that I'm struggling and that having him gone for a whole week would be really tough on me. He seemed surprised and a bit hurt that I was asking him to cancel. He said he's been looking forward to this trip for months and that he needs a break too. He also pointed out that his parents live nearby and could help if I needed support while he was away. I understand that Jake needs a break and wants to spend time with his friends, but I can't help feeling like this is a time when I really need him by my side. I tried to explain that while I appreciate his parents' help, it's not the same as having him here. Jake said that I'm being unfair by asking him to cancel the trip after all the planning that went into it, and that I need to trust him to make sure I'm supported even if he's not physically there. Now we're at a bit of a standoff. Some of my friends think I should let him go, saying that it's important for him to have some time away, especially after all the stress of becoming a new dad. But others agree that it's too soon for him to take off for a week and that he should prioritize being home with me and Olivia. Additional info. I know some of you are wondering why Jake even thought this trip was a good idea in the first place, and trust me, I've asked myself that question more times than I can count. For 9 months, I carried our daughter, went through the pain of labor, and now I'm breastfeeding, which is a whole new level of exhaustion. Meanwhile, Jake planned this trip without a second thought and lied about canceling it when I expressed my concerns. He still thinks it's unreasonable for me to ask him not to leave for an entire week, especially when I'm feeling completely overwhelmed. It's not that I don't appreciate help from his parents, but having them stay for the week while he's gone doesn't really solve the issue. What I need is Jake here, being present and supporting me as we navigate parenthood together. If he's really committed to being a good husband and father, he needs to understand that this isn't the time for solo trips. Part of being a parent means putting your own wants on hold for the sake of your family. I'm not saying Jake's a bad person, but this definitely feels like a huge misstep on his part. I hope this is the only instance of him prioritizing himself over our needs, but it's hard not to have doubts when things like this happen. Maybe down the road, when I'm no longer breastfeeding, I'll take a week for myself, and we'll see how he handles things on his own. But for now, what I need is for him to step up and be the partner I know he's capable of being. Update 1. August 22nd, 2024. Hey everyone! I just wanted to give a quick update after reading through most of the replies. I was honestly overwhelmed by the amount of support and understanding I received. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to respond. Your kind words and thoughtful advice really helped me feel less alone in this situation. A lot of you suggested that I should also take a week off, letting Jake stay with Olivia, to get a break for myself. I really appreciate the sentiment behind that suggestion, but there are a couple of reasons why it's not realistic for me right now. First of all, I'm breastfeeding, so being away from Olivia for that long would be really difficult logistically. But beyond that, and this is something I know I need to work on, I just don't feel comfortable being away from my baby yet. I know it's not healthy to feel like I can't have her out of my sight, but I can't help it. I guess it's just that new mom anxiety that's really hard to shake. I've been debating whether or not to show Jake this thread. I'm worried that reading it might hurt his feelings, but I'm definitely going to have another conversation with him about everything. I'm willing to compromise and let him go on the trip, but I think a whole week is just too much. I'm leaning towards suggesting that he limit the trip to a maximum of 3 nights, so he can still have some time away with his friends but not be gone for an entire week. I'll update again after we've talked. Thanks again for all the support. Everyone, it really means a lot to me. Update 2. August 23rd, 2024. Hey everyone, I just wanted to share another update after having a very long and emotional talk with Jake. I won't get into every detail of our conversation, but I'll touch on the most important points. After putting Olivia to bed, I went straight to bed myself, feeling utterly exhausted. Jake was already asleep, but for some reason, the weight of everything just hit me all at once, and I started crying uncontrollably. My sobbing woke Jake up, and he immediately asked me what was wrong. I told him that I was just tired, but then I opened up about how anxious I've been feeling about his trip and being left alone with Olivia. I admitted something I've been reluctant to say out loud, that Jake hasn't been as involved as I thought he would be. This was one of my biggest fears when we found out we were having a baby. For context, Jake has a rocky relationship with his own dad. I won't go into detail about why his dad isn't the best, but his mom, my mother-in-law, remarried when Jake was in middle school, and his dad wasn't very present in his life. Jake has expressed to me before that becoming a father was scary for him because he's afraid of being a bad one, just like his dad. When he first told me that, I thought it would make him into a great father because it showed how much he cared about being a good dad long before we were even pregnant. When I vented to him about all of this, at first he tried to defend himself. He admitted that he's been freaking out about having a baby for so long and just didn't want to tell me. He said he didn't want to stress me out while I was pregnant because he knows how much I've always wanted to be a mother. Hearing him say that made me feel guilty, like I hadn't seen how much he's been struggling internally. I had tried to convince him that he was going to be a great dad when we had this conversation long ago, and now it all felt more complicated. I thought to myself, this can't go on much longer. I realized that if he was going to keep pulling away like this, I didn't know if I could handle it. So I asked him, is this what our life is going to look like from now on? Me with Olivia and you away? Because if it is, Jake, then I don't think I can continue on like this. Jake told me to calm down and assured me that he wasn't going anywhere. Then he got really emotional. He even started to tear up. He said he didn't want to turn into his dad, and that he hadn't realized that going on this trip could be a preliminary step toward becoming the absentee father he feared he might be. He apologized for not considering me and Olivia as much as he should have. Long story short, Jake called his friends and told them he wouldn't be able to make the trip. He's even started planning a little family getaway for the three of us next year when Olivia is a bit older. It was a tough conversation, but I feel like we're on the same page now, and I'm hopeful that things will get better from here. Thanks again to everyone for your support and advice. It's been an emotional roller coaster, but I'm grateful for this community helping me navigate it. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.